Hello. Looks like I'm live. Hello, everyone. Monhop said he might be running a little late. Fortunately, that's on top of the I scheduled this 1 hour early by mistake because I just went into daylight savings. Apparently, he isn't in daylight savings at the same time, so I figured we just hang out until then. There's gonna be about 5 or 10 minutes late. So yeah, let's obviously today topic is Hoppe's excommunication, as it were, from the Mises Institute. He was removed as the only ever Senior Distinguished Fellow of the Mises Institute. If I can't just pull that up right now. Yes, here we go. Yeah, he was the only person to ever have Senior Distinguished Fellow ranking in the Mises Institute. I don't know what power scale that is in terms of distinguishment. Yeah, he was ousted because he published some articles not exactly being particularly friendly towards the Monhop might actually be live, so I suppose we'll be able to hear it from him. Well, I start listening.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Remnant. Zulu, how's things? Are we live and good to go on YouTube and everything?
Yes, I was assuming you're going to be late, so I was just kind of warming up the crowd a little bit.
We always love a bit of a early shift. Yeah, no, sorry about that, and sorry about the small little time zone issue. Again, when two people that are co-hosting are on the opposite side of the planet to one another, sometimes it get difficult to work out exactly what time everything is going down. But we made it. We're here and keen to get into it. So obviously, the topic of this episode is going to be primarily centered around the stuff that's going on with Hans Hermann Hoppe and the Mises Institute. So obviously, you'll be able to see from the title, but for those who are unaware of the context, basically, quite recently, Hans Hoppe's senior fellowship, distinguished senior fellowship, I should say, was with the Mises Institute. I believe he was the only person to hold that title ever, actually. Was stricken, or he was stripped from him, however you want to put it. He's no longer a fellow or has any standing within the Mises Institute officially. And that came as a result of some public comments he made about the leadership of the Mises Institute, and obviously dates back to some issues he's had with certain things that they've had speakers say and support over the years, and obviously famously or infamously, obviously his spat with Walter Block that dates back a few years now that saw Block himself get excommunicated, you could say, from the Mises Institute. So I've got some strong opinions about it, and I will foreshadow. Just because I'm a Hoppian and just because I love Hopper doesn't mean that I necessarily agree with everything that Hopper's done over the past few months. And so that's kind of me foreshadowing my perspective. Zulu, did you want to, offer your take at this juncture at all, or?
Yeah, I mean, so he was raising some, I think, interesting concerns in his original article, Quo Vadis, um, about like the structure of the Mises Institute. But this all seems like very, very inside baseball type stuff. Like, the structure of the Mises Institute leads it to basically being only Salerno who's basically in charge of the Mises Institute. It's like, okay, well, what? Maybe that's an improper structure for one of these institutes to have. Um, and in general, I don't have a whole lot of trust in like the institutions to be moving anything particularly much anymore. Um, but yeah, it very much seems like there's some sort of a personal beef going on underneath this. Um, and yeah, I mean it is somewhat predictable that he would be removed or have some sort of response given to him, given he was like publishing all this correspondence and whatnot. It was, it's not necessarily unpredictable to happen.
Yeah, so again, for people not fully privy, basically, Hopper came out with multiple articles now in which he criticized the structure of the Mises Institute. So his basic contention was, and to be clear, I'm not making any claims about the accuracy of these, assertions. This is just me recounting my understanding of what Hopper said. Basically, you've got the president, which is currently Tom DiLorenzo, and was formerly Jeff Deist. And his perspective, Hopper's perspective, was that that president, who is supposed to be like the head of the institute, should have the ultimate final say in any decision that the Mises Institute makes, right? So, like, yes, he can obviously delegate and have other people, give him information and whatnot. But fundamentally, Hopper's view, and I suppose I would share this view in a sense, would be that, hey, the president should have the final sign off or go no go on any decision that the Mises Institute is going to make as an organization. Hopper's contention, and again, this is again Hopper's contention, and I have no idea. I'm not sure whether this is true or not. Is basically that there's now this like separate board that's been set up, and I'm pretty sure, to be fair, pretty sure institutes are required by law to have such a board, set up. But again, I could be wrong about that. I don't want to speak out of turn, but and his contention was that this board, which is like headed or you know controlled primarily by Joe Salerno, was was really the one running things, and so he felt that Di Lorenzo and formerly Dice were put in positions where they were being charged as they were being put in a position where they were supposed to be the heads of the institute and making decisions for the institute, but that there were other people pulling the strings behind the scenes. So that's what Hopper contended, and again, my understanding of what Hopper contended, and ultimately that whether or not that's true, I've again not sure. What I would say definitively is that Hopper decided to publish, private emails that were sent between him and Lou Rockwell, and I believe Salerno, and I believe Ryan McMacken as well, who's like the editor in chief of the Mises Institute and Mises Wire and their actual publication side of things. So I think once you do that, you're kind of just asking for it in a sense almost. It's like, what's the institute going to do when you start publicly, criticizing their leadership and then also publishing private communications and correspondence between you and like their leadership? Like that's just what was going to happen. So I don't think anyone should be surprised that the Mises Institute felt they needed to take this step. As far as like whether they should or not, again, my perspective is I just don't like this kind of infighting. I don't like the fact that Hopper is no longer a distinguished fellow of the Mises Institute. Okay, he's been one of the greatest contributors to libertarian theory in the tradition that the Mises Institute upholds. of the last 50 years. And it was completely right that Hopper should have like that distinguished position, honorary position within the Mises Institute because of his contributions to the philosophy and to Austro-libertarianism. And so it really does sadden me a lot that this is where we are now. That the arguably the foremost proponent of Austro-libertarianism since Rothbard himself is no longer recognised within the Mises Institute. Is a really really sad thing from my perspective. But as far as Hopper's decisions and the choices that he's made, you know, I, so this to me, what this stems back to is the fact that the Mises Institute has been willing to host articles and speakers who express support for Harvey MLA. And as many people will know, Hopper has been a staunch critic of Harvey MLA for a long period of time. And that dates back pretty much to, as far as I know, it's the start of Milei's presidency. And one of the key concerns has always been, obviously, Milei is, he's converted to Judaism. And as far as I know, he's like, a huge supporter of Israel. Like he will make public, he's made lots of public declarations about how much he loves and supports the state of Israel and everything that it's doing and whatnot. And so Hopper obviously doesn't like that very much, which is perfectly understandable. And I totally get that. So he's obviously been very, very critical of Milei and his economic policies, but also just more broadly his attitude towards Israel. My position on that is that that's fine. They're perfectly entitled, and I would support people being critical of, foreign states engaging in war. Like I got no issue with that whatsoever. What I do have an issue with is him using his issue on that to and applying that to an economics institution like the Mises Institute hosting economics professors at economics conferences to talk about economics. Okay, because that's basically what he's done. He said, look, Milei is such like a bad figure in his view that anyone who has expressed support for Milei or who says, hey, some of his economic policies aren't too bad, that person, anyone that even not even that person themselves, anyone that hosts that person at an economics conference is now expressing public support for Israel. To me, that is just absolutely ridiculous. I don't see how it's possible to draw that connection between, hey, an economics institution bringing someone, and they don't just bring people that are like universally supported within the institute. The whole point is to bring people with different perspectives to offer their perspectives. And to draw that link and be like, well, because these people have spoken at these conferences and they also express support for Milei, who is a supporter of Israel, to then infer that the Mises Institute is a supporter of Israel, I think is a ridiculous, ridiculous notion. And that's where I really, really don't support the stance that Hopper has taken with respect to the Institute, because this has always been how the Institute has done things. They've been willing to have speakers and articles published which have been supportive of specific policy proposals that have been put forth by presidents and world leaders, even if those world leaders, in every single case, are not Austro-libertarians. They're not anarchists. They're not anarcho-capitalists. But the Mises Institute has still been willing to analyse their policy proposals and see whether, hey, are they compatible with our principles? Should we support what this proposal is trying to do or not? So that's kind of where I stand with respect to Hopper's actual position on all this. I don't know, again, Zulu, if you wanted to jump in on that or not, because I feel like I have been talking for a while.
Yeah, so this is one thing I said in the group chat before, because I believe Hopper first started kicking off about this when it was De Soto was speaking at the Mises Institute. I don't even know if it was specifically Hopper, but some people were kicking off about that because De Soto said that he liked Millet during his talk at the Mises Institute, and people were saying, "Oh, well, the burn down the Mises Institute," and so on and so forth, which I think is a little bit ludicrous. It's an institute; it's going to host different people, right? One kind of if we're going to have guilt by association to this degree, like when does it stop? It's like, okay, well, Millet is bad through his association with Israel. Okay, well, maybe there's something you can say there because he's an actual like head of state. Like, okay, maybe you can criticize him for that. But then you're going to criticize people who are associated with Millet. So we're in the second degree now, De Soto, and because Millet is support of Israel. Okay, so then how about we go even further? We've got to go after people who are supportive of De Soto, the Mises Institute, and because De Soto is supportive of Millet, who is supportive of Israel. Okay, well, where does this terminate? It's like, oh, I read a book by some guy, and I really like that book. I'm going to promote this book. It's like, oh, but that guy, he actually supports the Mises Institute, and the Mises Institute supports De Soto, and De Soto supports Millet. So you're basically saying that Netanyahu is the best guy ever. It's like, hold on, we're kind of off the reservation a little bit here, I feel like. But I will say, I'm not, in principle opposed to Hoppe doing this kind of burning of the bridges, and he's got his red line, and he's like, well, fuck you, I'm gonna try and attack. Obviously, I've done this very same thing against Dave Smith and the Neoprags. So I'm not necessarily against that type of activity, but I think it's just an incorrect red line to have here. I think there are better red lines to pick, but it's his life. He's allowed to do what he wants.
Yeah, well, and I wanted to make that clear because obviously, like if we were to be critical of Hoppe, that could come across as hypocritical given the stances you and I have both taken with respect to Dave Smith and the Mises Caucus and whatnot. And again, I just think it's a case of, again, you're right. There's nothing in principle wrong with what Hopper's doing. The problem is he's picking the wrong battle. And from my perspective, the delineating factor here is an ideological or fundamental philosophical difference, which I believe it was in the case of us versus Dave Smith, versus a specific policy or position on one specific issue. Okay. And Zul and I have been very, very consistent about this because we will engage with people and be friendly with people who have very different views about the application of libertarian legal theory to a wide range of issues. Borders, again, the whole borders thing wasn't fundamentally about borders. Borders was the manifestation of a more fundamental issue. Okay. But Zul and I have never been opposed to being friendly or cordial or co-hosting podcasts and YouTube streams with people who are supportive of restricted immigration. The one I wanted to bring up was actually abortion, because I think abortion is actually a really, really good kind of example of where, like, obviously there's a lot of Christian libertarians. So obviously Prax Ben, for instance, obviously who's friendly with you and I, Zulu. Within the Mises Institute, Bob Murphy is a Christian. As I'm assuming he's pro-life. I don't actually know if he's ever said that, but I think he would almost just assume that people would figure that because he's Christian. Jacob Winograd and others who are Christian libertarians who would hold that the correct implementation of or application of libertarian legal theory would be pro-life, that abortion and even eviction of a fetus is tantamount to murder. If that's the case, and you've got these two kind of broad schools of thought which seem to be, pro-life versus evictionism, then the pro-life position would be that myself, Zulu, Hopper himself, Walter Block, all these people are supportive of mass murder. Okay, that would be the pro-life libertarian position, is that these evictionist libertarians are supportive of mass murder. And mass murder, I ran the numbers before, like last night before we jumped on this. So like this is not just like a trust me bro moment,
Way more than
but
the Holocaust. I'll tell you that much.
way more than the Holocaust, way more than Israel. Okay, like 500 times more deaths per on any given time frame. 500 times more deaths from abortion than from the conflict with Israel. Okay, so Hopper's position, if we were being consistent, would be that people who are pro-life libertarians should be calling for him to be excommunicated from the Mises, for him to be excommunicated from the Mises Caucus, along with Walter Block, along with myself, along with Zulu, along with anyone listening right now who's an Austro-libertarian and an evictionist. That would be the position.
And also,
So
and
that's what I
also
want.
to
Yeah,
attack
go ahead.
anybody who hosts those people. If the Mises Institute hosted any of those people as well, he would want them. If we're to take that standard, then Jacob Winograd should be going, "Oh, Mises Institute, fuck you! Why are you hosting all these people who are associated with evictionists or pro-choicers, like just people who like even to take it the second degree removed, right? Because that's what he's doing."
Right, exactly. I mean, he's stretching it, yeah, as you said, beyond all semblance of reason, and moreover, like, because this obviously comes back to the whole Walter Block thing. So, for again those that are unaware, obviously Walter Block has taken a very pro-Israel stance and has tried to make the NAP grounded case for Israel's right to, bomb the people of Palestine, more or less. And it's a case that I do not support whatsoever. I think he makes a pretty, ridiculous and tenuous argument. Okay. But again, my position is you should be allowed to make challenging, difficult, or, unpopular arguments within the Austro-libertarian sphere, as long as you're attempting to, and the delineating factor should be whether or not you're grounding it in the non-aggression principle. Okay, if you're saying I'm no longer grounding this in the non-aggression principle, I don't care about the NAP. Okay, that's the delineating factor. Okay, not what the implications of your policy proposal are. So, you can say what you want about Block's position. I think it's pretty darn bloodthirsty and, reprehensible. Okay. But people should be allowed to make reprehensible arguments for things. That was kind of Block's whole thing, defending the undefendable, right? Uh, excuse me. He's gotten it wrong a lot of times. Okay. And to that end, I would say, and this is something that you've pointed out before, Zulu, is that if you want to do a comparison between, Hopper's position on immigration and Block's position on Israel, it seems like their fundamental fatal flaw is the same, namely that they both hold that collective property rights can exist, right? So Block believes that the Jewish people have some collective property right in the land around Israel dating back to centuries and millennia, like the 3,000, like it's probably some 3,000 years ago or whatever. And so he holds that because the Jewish people possess this collective property right over Israel, they're entitled to do whatever needs to be done in order to preserve that property right. So that's Block's position. Hopper's position is that the net taxpayers of any given nation have a collective property right in the public property held by the state, and therefore the state is entitled to, on their behalf, you know, keep immigrants that would potentially be destructive to that public property out of the country. So again, you can argue about which policy proposal is more destructive, as far as, death toll. I think I've made a pretty compelling argument that abortion trumps all of it 1,000 times over, potentially, if you're a pro life libertarian. So you can argue about that as much as you want. And I'm not going to dispute the idea that, hey, what Israel's doing, if you take the anti Israel position, is probably been more destructive than, an immigration policy that Hopper would propose. But it doesn't change the underlying fact that they're both making the same false assumption. And so, given that, there should be an element of recognizing that, hey, it's not so much that the principal difference here isn't that Hopper's position results in less deaths. The principal difference here would be what is the basis for their position, and the fact of the matter is the basis for their position on these respective issues is fundamentally the same. They believe in collective property rights, and that leads them to bad conclusions, in our opinion, in this case. Again, Zula, I don't know if you want to jump in on that or not.
Yeah, because this is because again that was my thing when Hoppe initially did that whole excommunication of Walter Block. Well, as I was like, well, hold on, because yeah, as you say, Hoppe, they're making the same fundamental error there. So if we're going to excommunicate people for that fundamental error, like, and that's not even what they're doing. They're not looking at like, okay, well, what is the fundamental error going on here, and that error is at fault. Like, they're not thinking in terms of philosophy. They're not thinking in terms of absolutes. Like, there's that Rand quote: "Don't you think Don't you think in principles? You know, whatever it is, right?" They're not thinking in those terms. They are thinking in just what is my pet issue of the day, and do you disagree with me on that pet issue, on this specific policy proposal? Therefore, get rid of you. Like, this is a very disappointing thing to see. Where, like, if again, let's take it back to Dave Smith even. If Dave Smith's policy on the border, if Trump enacted that day one, there'd be way more deaths than the Israel-Palestine conflict. I'm telling you that much right now. All right, he wants Israeli-style border defense more so in the United States of America, much bigger country. That's what Dave Smith said that he wants. So, like, but because they're only thinking of particular policies rather than thinking in terms of abstractions, they can't see these types of things. And it's very disappointing to see. Like, this is why it's very important to think in terms of the abstract. You know, we're trying to be philosophers here. We're not being, just grabbing onto specific policy proposals. That was the thing which was so attractive to me when I first started learning about anarcho-capitalism. Pardon me. Was that it wasn't just grabbing policies out of a hat and seeing which ones vibed with me. Right? It was working out the correct policy based on principles, and those principles are what matters, right? Like, sure, if somebody was like a big name in the Mises Institute, and they were like some big fellow or whatever, and then they started saying that, no, the NAP sucks, I hate libertarianism, I'm gonna be like a fucking social liberal or whatever, yes, excommunicate them right away, certainly. But not if they're just still sticking to those principles, but erring in some way. Because if we're going to have a completely inerrant standard here, where the second you err and you're trying to apply like the non-aggression principle to some issue, and you have a whoopsie, guess what? We're gonna be like the socialist caricature of us. We're gonna just each be islands to ourselves, and we won't have a movement any longer. Right? We won't be able to promulgate the non-aggression principle as like true philosophy any longer, because it'll be like, oh well, I disagree with Monhop on this one policy proposal, way remote from the principles themselves. Some like implementation detail, whether I think it should be like one way or the other. Even if we have broadly the same idea about what the policy should be, then I've got to excommunicate Monhop. I've got to excommunicate everybody else. Like, we're going to have disagreements. Let's be adults about this,
100%. And I do want to say, also, there's people up on the speaker panel. If anyone wants to jump up, it's because it's only been Zulu and I talking. Normally, we get other people involved. And so I want to give other people the opportunity to say their piece. So if you are up on the speaker panel already and you want to say something, just pop your hand up. You should know how to do it. Just get this little button going like this, and we'll invite you up. And as soon as I say that, Harrow wants to jump in. So, Harrow, our first guest to jump on today, please go ahead.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yep, all good.
Okay, so I had a question. It's not so much about this exact topic per se, but it is pertinent to strategy. It was about the post Jacob Winograd had, or relevant to the discussions about trans right, the versus human rights. And Liquid Zulu made a post regarding that, and I was in the discussion with San Francisco LP, the account that had a bunch of hashtags, and they were discussing, gun rights, trans rights, human rights, black rights there, rights everywhere, a complete Oprah Winfrey of rights for everybody. I wanted to ask, what role do you think it has to discuss rights in such a way, or is it only necessary, and do you think best to discuss it as property rights, or do you think it is in some way beneficial to discuss rights and bring it to property rights through discussion of gun rights, right to health care, bringing that down to a discussion of property rights? That was my question for you.
Sure, and I will say, like, that San Francisco LP account, whoever the manager is on that, like, you are the most annoying motherfucker on the entire planet Earth. Like, I got, like, spam with, like, 12 different replies in my notifications. All of them had, like, at least 6 hashtags in there. Like, shut the fuck up. That's not... Hashtags, you get deboosted for hashtags these days. Don't use them, okay? Stop. If this ever reaches them, this is a public service announcement to whoever the fuck that is. Stop doing that shit. It's really annoying. But as for the question, yeah, I think you have to look at like what the term is understood to mean. Obviously, it all boils down to property rights. Property rights are the only legitimate rights there are. There is no like, IP rights or, healthcare rights or anything of the sort, right? We are libertarians. We believe in property rights. That's it. Now, if somebody's saying, oh, I think the Republicans should be stronger on gun rights, don't go in there being like, well, actually, idiot, there's no such thing as a right for a gun, because when somebody says the term gun rights, everybody understands that to mean that the government shouldn't come in and prevent people from buying or trading guns. That's what everybody means by that statement. Now, it's certainly, if you want to go in there and say, like, indeed, yeah, gun rights, but this is actually just one application of the general principle of property rights. Sure, start the discussion that way. Say that this is a libertarian issue and you guys are just coming along from the right. Absolutely, perfectly fine with that. But this was specifically about some LP affiliate tweeted out about how trans rights are something or another, and I said that libertarians don't believe in anything called trans rights or human rights or anything like that. We don't believe in those concepts. And this is because I got into it with Alistair Kay, where it was all like, okay, well, trans rights, that just means that trans people shouldn't be like genocided or whatever. I can't remember what exactly was said. But like, my thing with this is, every single time, 10 times out of 10, that somebody reads the term trans rights, they read it, cartoon character says trans rights, and that's the meme or whatever. 10 times out of 10, people read that as, oh, there should be state-sponsored surgeries, and people should be punished for misgendering someone. That's what everybody understands the term trans rights to mean. Okay, like, this is a specifically collectivist terminology. Suck it up, guys. The collectivists own that term at this point. The same way as like women's rights or black rights or any of these other intersectional categories. The collectivists won on that front. Like, give it up to them. You're not clawing that back. So just talk about property rights on those fronts.
And I will say, just the last remark on my end, I do absolutely see the distinction between when somebody's discussing gun rights as opposed to saying right to healthcare or right to education, or basically anytime the UN votes on whether something's a right, it's not a vote on good or bad, but like, will we provide it as a state? But I do think that there are certain things that I'm not quite sure where I can place it, whether it's on the gun rights side or the right to healthcare side, and how people understand it. And one of those is right to privacy. Because on the one hand, I can interpret it in a Fourth Amendment-esque way, but on the other hand, I see it applied to online data protection laws and such. So I wanted to understand as well how you consider that, or if that was another instance where it's even more important to bring it down to a discussion of property rights.
Yeah, definitely there you want to cut through the noise on that. I would say if you're anywhere in Europe, never talk about how libertarians accept some sort of right to privacy, because everybody's going to understand that to mean, oh, you want GDPR, right? Where companies have to, go through all these fucking hoops in order to not keep your data or whatever. That's completely illegitimate. I would say that term is very much poisoned. I would definitely, if you're going to use that term, absolutely clarify exactly what you're meaning by it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ironically, it was Walter Block who originally made the argument that you don't have the right to privacy under a libertarian legal order, or maybe not originally, but he definitely made a formal essay about it. Yeah, thank you for that, Harrow. Let's go to Acorn. Acorn, if you want to jump in, please go ahead.
So in some of Zulu's streams, debate reviews, for example, the one on Dave Smith and what's his name again, Andrew Wilson, as well as the one with Andrew Wilson and Divinity, Zulu's criticized the argumentum ad Merriam-Webster. I'm wondering if you can elaborate why this is a bad idea to refer to the dictionary for definitions.
So, actually, Destiny, in his review of Dave Smith versus Andrew Wilson, he goes into it quite well, if you're interested. But, the overview is, if you've been, interrogated down in some debate, and you get to a point where you're not understanding where you are, and you just go, oh, well, let's just pull up the dictionary then. It's not going to help you at all. You are on completely shaky ground there because you're in a highly specialized subfield of philosophy, and the dictionary just isn't going to capture all of the relevant local knowledge there. It just cannot, because that's just not the role of a dictionary. You're supposed to come into this with an already integrated philosophy and be able to define your own terms. And if you can't do that, then you don't have an argument any longer, right? Then they've just interrogated you down to the root of your knowledge. And so Merriam-Webster's dictionary is not going to come in and save you. It's just a terrible debate strategy. Never do that. Try it way better, ideally you don't want to be in this position, but try to come up with some. It's oh, well, let's come up with a definition. I'll use this as a preliminary definition. Maybe we can work on this together. Something like that. It's going to be way better. It's okay, yeah, no, that doesn't quite capture what I'm meaning then. So let's alter the definition a little bit. And you can alter it on the fly. If you're sly enough with it, you can get away with that. Definitely not saying, I believe in the dictionary, and the dictionary says this, because then if they come with some reduction against the dictionary definition, then you're kind of fucking screwed.
Okay. Another thing is, earlier you were appealing to, well, this is how everyone understands the word when you say it. Would you say that this argument is always valid, or would you need to qualify it with certain context?
So I was saying that in terms of strategy, in terms of how you should, use your language, and if 100% of the time people hear trans rights, and assume you're talking about how the government needs to. I think Monhop had a little bit of an oopsie there. I think he must have changed accounts or something. And well, presumably he'll get back there. I usually see people use trans rights as a way to pervert reality. Trans women are real women, or when they force people on themselves. Better to stick with liberty and property rights. Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, I sent another link, so presumably he did just a temporary oopsie there. Whilst we're getting back into this, I might as well read some super chats. Activity. I thought I did have a super chat. Go. Turn that out. Funding. Yeah, from Hockey1 for 5 euros. Thank you very much. Why does Hoppe have this need to destroy anyone who doesn't totally agree with him, like Block or Huerta de Soto, who have incredible contributions? I'm not. I don't know. It does seem like it's all tied into the Israel-Palestine thing. Seems like that's like kind of his big issue at the moment. So like, I suppose it's to do with that.
I can see on YouTube that he's like sitting there.
Why does Hoppe have this need to destroy anyone who doesn't totally agree with him, like Block or Huerta?
All right, let me just let. I'm just.
Did you switch
Heliero.
tabs again?
Yes, I can hear you. That was just a major Monhop moment right there. Sorry about that, everyone.
Change
Gonna have
accounts or
to
something.
gonna have to block off the section of my screen that can cause me to just casually switch tabs and just blow up, nuke the entire stream. So, or something. Just get that out of my brain. So yeah, sorry everyone, but we are back, and it seems like we didn't really lose anyone. So, yeah. So I mean, I think it was Zulu was answering a question. So if everyone's remembers where we were, we can just jump back into it.
I believe Akon was asking a question, and I cannot remember what it was.
I think it was something to do with
You guys were
maybe
talking
not
about
there.
you guys were talking about definitions, and the issue is that when you get interrogated at towards the end of your knowledge of, let's say, of a term, and then you decide to pull up Merriam-Webster, it's not going to help you at all.
I answered that part already. Yeah, I had a follow up.
Yeah, that part was answered. The part that Zulu was cut off from was about why he earlier appealed to, well, that's how everyone understands the term.
Yeah, so I was speaking in terms of strategy as to why you shouldn't be trying to build some sort of a brand. Like, libertarians are for, gay rights and gay farmers protecting their wheat farms with AR-15, why it's a bad idea to do that, because you're not actually communicating what libertarianism communicates, which these people, they are trying to communicate, transgenders have some special privileges. I truly do believe this. Or at least they're useful idiots for the leftists. But when I say, cartoon character says trans rights, everybody reads that as, oh, so they should get like special privileges from the government. They should get state-funded surgeries. People shouldn't be allowed to misgender them, so on and so forth. That's what the term trans rights means to literally everybody. And there is, we don't have any need to rescue that term, because we don't have any need for special group rights, right? Because we believe in property rights. That's the rights we believe in, and they apply across the board. They're universal, right? So we don't need group rights or anything of the sort.
So would the distinction between when you want to rescue a term and when you want to just give up on a term and just let the public say it however they want, be the importance and usefulness of the term?
Yeah, specifically how useful it is for our purposes. Aggression, for instance. People might hear aggression and think it just means all violence. But that's actually a very important term for us to have for our own uses there, because it does identify a specific concept which has been identified in history as well. So it's very important for us to rescue that term from the bowels of history, but really not interesting at all to try and rescue trans rights, because that doesn't add anything to our theory.
Okay, so my last question for now is, I want to link it back to earlier when you said that you don't trust people who don't call themselves capitalists. So when people say capitalism or anarcho-capitalism, a lot of people in the public think that capitalism is just a status quo. It's when the state just puts all these regulations on, but then there's still business and whatnot. And a lot of people, when they think of anarcho-capitalism, they think that slavery contracts are valid and basically you can do contracts about anything. So that's how the public views it. My question would be like, why do we need to rescue the term capitalism when we could use terms such as free market and laissez-faire instead?
Well, I think you vastly overestimate. This is an XKCD comic about like geologists discussing how much people know about rocks. I think you vastly overestimate how much the member of the public would know about anarcho-capitalism. Where it's like, oh, you can make contracts about anything. Like, I don't think if you said anarcho-capitalism to the average member of the public, I think they'd have basically no clue about what you're talking about. So I think this is a very unpoisoned term. Now it's a very good filtering mechanism to be talking about capitalism. I'm a capitalist, because the people who hate that term hate it for its virtues. They hate it for what is great about capitalism. And that's why I think it's a very useful term to use. And the people who are very afraid of calling themselves capitalists, 9 times out of 10, they end up going down the commie route. It's a very good filter.
Cool. Well, I think that was all that Acorn had for the moment. I will also say, just for anyone that's wanting to get up and speak, my standard is generally that you need to have like some sort of presence on, the app, so to speak, before I'm going to let you get up and potentially, contribute to the space. The reason I'm saying that is because there's an individual by the name of VT Virtanen here who has been on the app since February 2022, has 0 followers and 0 following, and has never posted. And my point is, like, if anyone's coming here thinking that they're gonna get up and be able to say their piece with having absolutely no presence whatsoever on the space, then you're wasting your time. So I did just want to like point that out. But with that said, let me as he drops from being from requested. I'm sorry, man. As he leaves, just not going to happen. So, well, let's hear from Yermore next, and then we'll get through the rest of the hands. But Yermore, please jump in.
Right, it's my second time here. It's my second account as well. Shame. Something about donut homesteads not exactly relevant. Is that right?
Yeah, sure.
Right. So I have a basic understanding of it, right? Of course. I've read a tiny bit. I've read a little bit on Zulu's page, okay? But my question is, can the donut homestead problem be applied to like cities? That's kind of an important bit, right? Because if you have a bunch of property, say like a road, a house, a couple of apartment blocks, and it's all surrounded, how does this turn either into the the donut homestead issue, or is it not a problem?
Yeah, so you can imagine it kind of building out like a colony of cells almost. Like one person builds in the middle, then people start building around them. If you're sealing in that donut, then you have to maintain some sort of an easement. Generally this is how you get roads. Like there'll be an easement maintained over these for people who own property there. So like it kind of builds up sequentially. So that's why I don't think like in a city would be impossible, even keeping to proper property norms.
Right. So what if it's just all just property? Say it's like one plot of land and every single individual part of the land is bought off and eventually it turns into a city. What is that? Does it eventually turn into a homestead problem? And you mentioned something about the easements of roads. Would that kind of imply public roads, maybe?
So if I wanted to sell off my property in such a way that I created a donut homestead, and that I started some sort of forestalling, then that contract is not valid. So you'd have to sell off these plots in such a way that there are easements maintained.
Thanks. That's helpful. Anyway, to circle back to the original content of the space, it's the main thing. I read on Hoppe's thing, and it implies that all the people that kicked him out were actually involved with Sir Malay. What do you think about this? It's like all the donor members, the inner party of the institute.
Yeah, I don't see any reason for Hopper to be able to make that claim. I think it's just a case of like what Zulu was talking about is like a kind of guilt by association stretched ad infinitum to the point where it's like, hey, you know, you Joe Salerno, because you are a key person at the Mises Institute, and the Mises Institute supported De Soto, who supports Millet, who supports Israel. You know, therefore you are to be, you know, you are persona non grata. Like that seems to be basically what Hopper's doing, and I don't like that whatsoever. I wouldn't apply that to Dave Smith or anyone, even with philosophical disagreements. I would never stretch it that far, even if I thought that there was a genuine basis for the principal disagreement that Hopper thinks we're having here. So,
I'm saying this because I read a little bit of Hoppe's original article that I made after it, and it says the outside board members, including Ron Paul, Agenetti, John Dean, all have the main power or something. No, he's saying the inner members who are paid have the main power here, and he's also said that I'm getting this from Schizoid Man's video. This is the main bit. He says that they're very connected with Javier Milei, the inner board members, the same members that got him kicked out. So he's implying that Milei's talked to these guys that he knows to get him out.
yeah, for sure. I mean, again, I don't know one way or another. To be quite honest, I don't know. I'm assuming Zula's going to probably say a similar thing, but I don't know one way or another. What I would say is that, like, yeah, the people who are the paying, you know, donors of the Mises Institute are probably going to have the power. That is just part and parcel of having an institute of that nature, and if you don't like that, then that's fair enough. I can understand why you wouldn't like, you know, it just being, hey, if you pay in, you know, you're going to have a say. I get that, but that's just how these organizations are run. So it would be a criticism of the institution as a whole, more so than anything else.
Well, so I'm not quite sure on the timeline here. Is the accusation from Schizoid that, because I didn't read this, I did read Hoppe's article, but I didn't read it in that way. Is the accusation that that Millet was in some way influencing the Mises Institute to get Hoppe kicked out? Because like that timeline doesn't add up. Because then why isn't Hoppe kicked out initially, and then Hoppe calls it out? You know, why is Hoppe calling it out and posting all this private correspondence and whatnot, and then he gets kicked out? Like if it was Millet pulling the strings to get Hoppe kicked out, why wasn't he kicked out initially? You know?
I mean, it is what he's implying. I took a screenshot and posted it in chat. It's from 10:33 from Schizoid's video. And it's a specific part of the article where it kind of implies that. It's saying that Javier Milei and the inner board members were all fraternizing with each other before. So
well, that they were fraternizing. That doesn't mean that he's implying that Millet is trying to get him kicked out of the Mises Institute.
I mean, they kind of are, because he's saying they're showering each other with awards and invitations, prizes, and money, and especially money. That implies certainly that they're doing something behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, so I'm trying to read this, and I believe the context is potentially, so Hopper and a few others, and this includes De Soto, by the way. That this is quite ironic. Were not happy that the Mises Institute of Germany, which is a separate institution, by the way, was going to give Millet some kind of like award or something, and they were not happy about that, and so they all resigned from their positions. So I don't know whether that was what Hopper's referencing in that, but if it is a reference to that institution, then that's as far as I know a separate body to the Mises Institute that is in, Auburn, Alabama. So that's one thing to consider. I mean, yeah, as Zulu kind of says, and as I said at the start of the space, Hopper at this point was basically like begging for them to do this. Like this is, I don't see how you could do what Hopper did and think that anything other than, okay, we're going to have to sever our connection to you was going to happen. That was just the natural conclusion of his decision to do so. And it seems like the Mises Institute really, really didn't want to do this, and they did it because of the decisions that he made. So I don't feel like it's a case where you look at it and you're like, yeah, the Mises Institute wanted him out because of Malay, and then they just, found a justification, whatever justification they could, to do it anyway. I don't feel like that's what's going on here. But again, I want to couch this in. I don't know the inner workings of the Mises Institute. Okay, I know a couple of people there, and I've spoken to them a little bit about this, but I don't know them very well. I don't like. I'm not like I guess they're probably friends, but they're not like close associates that I talk to, and they give me intimate details about everything that's going on. So I want to catch that all in that. It's like I genuinely, and Zulu is probably the same. Genuinely don't know the inner workings of the Mises Institute, so it could be completely true, but I don't think that there's much evidence for that.
I don't disagree. It's certainly unprofessional, and it's a horrible thing for Hopper to be posting private emails and such. But I'm just saying it's a good thing to discuss. I mean, see, I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. That's why I brought it up. Okay, I'm a little bit of a schizo, so don't worry
That's
about
cool.
it.
Like as I said, like we got to be willing to discuss these things openly. So that's completely fine, man. Appreciate it. Do want to keep it rolling because all of a sudden we have 6 people with their hands up. So appreciate it, Yermo, as always, and always welcome back. Let me go to You Can Always Change Your Mind next, and then we'll hit up Zernix, and then we'll get through the rest of the hands. So You Can Always Change Your Mind. Please jump in.
Hello.
Hey.
Yeah, so he was talking about roads and such. I was had some thoughts on this, or like thought about it. So yeah, so basically, if you are surrounded by roads around your house, basically, like in the city, you it would have to be easements on the road. Otherwise, it would be a donut hole instead. But also, an interesting thing I thought about: if the road is like has potholes and the owner doesn't care about fixing it, I think you have a right to fix the road, basically. So it doesn't become unowned, but I think roads in big cities can be fixed. Like it can be just like how with a baby you can, even though you like don't know the will, you can help the baby. I think like similarly you can fix the road such that it works if it doesn't work, even if the owner maybe even doesn't want it.
That's an interesting proposition. I hadn't thought about that. I think that the way that this would all just function is that when you bought land at a place, part of the contract would be like, you're also entitled to access to, these facilities, including the roads, right? Like it would just be, embedded into the contracts. Like, hey, I'm buying this house, and as part of that, I'm also engaging in a contract with whoever is the owner of the road that I'm allowed to use their roads like whenever I want to in order to, get to and from my house. That seems to be a fairly, simple way to resolve any kind of potential tensions that could be there from.
But like contracts are built from property rights, and I think.
Can you turn down the gain on your mic a little bit?
Sorry. Yeah. Is this better?
A little bit
You're actually
louder.
too quiet now.
Yeah, you're just peaking a little bit before.
Okay. No, it's at 8 or 7. Yeah.
Up a little more.
That seems to be about right.
Cool. I forgot where it was.
Up a little more.
Okay. Let's see. That better?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
seems pretty good from my perspective. Yeah, so we were discussing roads, and you were saying that, correctly that contracts are built from property rights. My only point was that, like, in order to resolve any potential tensions, that you could use a contract. Like, but I agree. Like, they could be a pure property rights, case for how you are entitled to access certain roads. But I'm just saying that, in order to resolve any potential, disagreements or tensions, that you could use a contract to be like, hey, this person, while they own this place, is entitled to utilize the roads around them, if that makes sense.
But sorry to interrupt. I guess my issue here with this kind of statement that saying that you could potentially fix the road against the property owner's will, it's kind of nebulous to me here, because even if you had a contract, let's say you didn't, contracts are not all exhaustive, and let's say you didn't consider potential like degradation of this road, at what point would you have the positive claim to go and say, hey, you need to fix this? Like, what would be the standard that you're looking at?
No, it's not that you have to demand that the owner fix it. It's that you have the right to fix it yourself, because otherwise you're trapped there, basically.
What,
I think.
let's say it's not trapped, but let's say it's inconvenient. At what point are we looking at where it's like so inconvenient that you're quote unquote trapped? Like, how are you determining that this is, like, what's determining the entrapment aspect of it?
I think it's just that only minor inconvenience you could fix it. I don't see another principled stance. Only the requirement is that you are surrounded by the road in some way for you to get from A to B, basically. But I like it's a new thing I thought of, so like I'm open.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. I just because I just see, like, even if you are fixing it, right? If the owner doesn't want to, and let's say it's a minor inconvenience, let's say there's one pothole that you can technically potentially go around it, right? It's not to the extent of where you can't cross it. Do you have the right to go ahead and fix it against the owner's will if he doesn't want it to be fixed? And that, like, what if he wants that pothole? What if he's the one who dug the pothole?
Yeah, I would say you have the right to it, because you need a road to get out of your home, basically. I don't have like a super strong justification there, I guess, right now, but that's at least my thought about it. If anyone has any reason why it isn't, or better justification, I'd like to hear it.
I do have two things I want to say here. First of all, Zernx, can you turn down the gain on your mic like 1 or 2 dB? It is a little bit loud. Or hold your phone further from your face. I don't know, something like that. But just tangential to this discussion, because I haven't actually thought about this thing specifically. One thing, like, people might be like, oh, well, if the owners have all this like onus on them to maintain roads, why the hell would any roads be maintained? Why would anybody want to own a road in a major city? It's like, there are many reasons why. If I have like a shopping district and we're a bunch of shops, we would want to have roads to our shops. Also, there are all these like things you see, like in New York. It's like a parking spot sells for $1 million or something. Parking is very expensive, and you could absolutely monetize parking. But as for the thing of you can go out and maintain the homestead, maintain the easement. Surely, if you're being surrounded already, the onus would be on the owner to maintain that easement. That's the thing that I'm not sure about on this theory.
All right. Perhaps. But I also think it would be fine to fix it if the owner didn't. Let's say even is right. Yeah. I think I forgot where I was, but anyways.
No, I appreciate that. Sorry, what was that?
Oh, I was just asking if there was anything more on this, because I have like one or two other things I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, you had another thing you wanted to talk about, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was watching this Pluribus show. I watched 7 episodes today, binging it. Very good show. I recommend it. I watched it because I heard Zulu was about to make a video about it. Was quite. It seemed off-putting in the start. Just didn't feel right, but it was very, very interesting. I guess the ideas presented there. if you're a libertarian, I think it would be very enjoyable to watch, I'd say. And I'm curious. I guess maybe it's just short spoiler. Maybe I'm just curious where you'll do like a legal analysis on this guy from Paraguay.
Quite probably, yes. But like it will definitely be secondary because I think, you know, whether or not, because I mean, I did go over this with Acorn at some point, where like I think he could go further in like taking stuff, but like literarily, aesthetically, it's important that he doesn't go further in taking stuff. Like he's got to be like the most extreme possible. And I think that's the most important thing there.
Yeah, I was also like, I guess also spoiler again, was thinking like it kind of ties, like one point of it kind of ties in negatively against like this, you can like steal a ladder as long as you basically pay back after or whatever. It was, I guess I'm spoiling a bit, but anyways, maybe you could include that in the video, I guess, or not. Yeah, that was
For sure. No, I appreciate it, man. We'll keep it rolling. I'm going to exercise host privilege here. I want to hear from Sue, aka Eudaimonia. So, Sue, welcome to the stage. Please jump in and go ahead. Never mind. Okay. So we'll go to, while we wait, we'll go to Judo next. I think he's been waiting the longest. As I said, promise we'll get to everyone. But we'll go to Judah next, and then we'll keep it rolling.
Hello, thank you. I have like two short questions to make. I'm quite impressed with how you make your videos, especially the recent ones. Ever since I think the art one, I think that's the one you made against AI art, or I mean for, sorry. But I do want to know, how do you make your videos?
Sure. So that one I made in Caden Live actually. The main improvement there was I used a lot of motion graphics from. I make the motion graphics with Motion Canvas. It's called. It's a free and open source software. You can use it however you want. It's pretty good. It has its own wrinkles with it. But the main benefit of it is it's entirely declarative. You're writing your animations with JavaScript code or TypeScript code, and it defines the animation, and that allows you to do a lot of very interesting things, which you can't really do with imperative animation. I have my own framework or component library that I'm building on top of Motion Canvas currently. I've been building that the entire time I've been using it. Just when I come up with a good idea for a component, I add it to that, so on and so forth. Like it's a very good piece of software, so I'd recommend using that. More recently, I've started using DaVinci Resolve Studio as well, which is a very good non-linear editor, way better than Caden Live, but you do have to pay for the studio version. It's like 200, 300 euros, something like that. I can definitely make that back. So if you're just getting into video production, I definitely would not necessarily recommend DaVinci Resolve Studio. But if you start making some money from it, it's a very good piece of software, and that's what I used to make the Dave Smith video and every video since.
Thank you. My second question would be that is Austro-libertarian literature open to historical revisionism in some other places in the world? I would like to write one based on my own country's history, looking at it from an Austro-libertarian perspective.
Almost certainly. I don't see any reason why the Mises Institute or something wouldn't get behind that, as long as it meets kind of their requirements with regard to academic scholarship and whatnot. Yeah, I'm again. Like, I don't want to speak for the institute, but I know that they're into that kind of thing. So, um, I yeah, I would be hopeful at the very least that they would be supportive of that, and I can't see why they wouldn't be. I suppose.
Because I would like to like a polemic towards a lot of the modern historians in my country. They're very socialist leaning in their interpretations of many of the national heroes from my country. It's quite unsettling.
Sweet as. All right, appreciate that, man. Did you have anything else? Sorry, before we'll keep it rolling.
No, you
Otherwise,
can move on. It's all right.
sweet as. All right, we'll go to Zernix next, and then we'll hit up official Jello. But Zernix, please jump in.
Yeah, am I too loud or am I good now?
You're good now, yeah.
Okay, awesome. I guess I was having a conversation with somebody regarding like maybe the idea of ownership, and they were kind of making a argument to me saying that because they own their bodies and their judgment, or rather their consciousness, is like an emergent property of their body, so they own their consciousness, and by arguing with them and potentially using like trying to maybe using persuasion, is that you were coercing their judgment. And I try to point out to them that like judgment is not a physical thing. It's you just like they acknowledge it's an emergent property, but for some reason I just couldn't get into them. And so I'm just wondering, like, what potential way could I phrase it, or did they have something valid in what they were trying to communicate to me?
Yeah, I would say that's entirely invalid what they're going at there. It's like, do I own the fact that I've got ginger hair and I'm white and I've got blue eyes? Like, do I own these attributes of myself? Like, no. I own like the actual my physical body. I don't. It doesn't make sense to say that I own the faculty of consciousness, because they can decide not to listen to you if they want. They're deciding to listen to you. Well, how can there be a conflict over consciousness then, where they don't want to, integrate what you're saying to them, but also they are deliberately integrating what you're saying to them? Like, that's that's an internal conflict, you might say, but it has nothing to do with the concept of conflict in legal theory, right? It's one part of them wanting one thing and another part of them wanting another thing, like, and one part overrides the other eventually, I guess. But that has nothing to do with what we mean by conflict.
Yeah, I guess the reason why I was doing my best to explain it, and maybe because this guy is like just so caught up in his own contradiction in his own head that he just couldn't follow it. But he kind of claimed that he was like an objectivist determinist, which to me was completely oxymoronic, and it made no sense to me on how he could hold those two ideas together in his own head.
Yeah, that's total nonsense. Zero objectivists are determinists. That's a very basic point in the objectivist epistemology.
I'm gonna say that is as close as you could get to like just a complete logical contradiction. It's obviously not purely one, but it's like pretty darn close.
I'm an objectivist Platonist, it's like, this is ludicrous.
Yeah, I argued with him. I'm like, these are. It's like, oh, the way I justify is because I'm also a compatibilist. I'm like, still doesn't matter. That doesn't assist you. Determinism in itself literally contradicts the very idea of just adding another term is not helping you. Like, and I guess maybe that's why I couldn't get to him at all, and he was just confused.
I will say, as an interesting point, there is one sense in which compatibilism is valid under objectivist epistemology. And that is if by compatibilism you mean that causality is compatible with consciousness, or free will, I should say. Because, the objectivists definitely believe that. But what it's generally taken to mean is that determinism is compatible with free will, which I don't know what the fuck that would even mean. I've had it explained to me before, but I still don't know what the fuck it means. I'm just completely clueless on what the hell that means. Seems like cope.
I agree. That's what I said. I said, I think you're coping, bro.
Genuinely, that is what I said when I was taking like an ethics class when I was like a lot younger. I was just sat there thinking, okay, these compatibilists are just like, yeah, they're coping. We didn't really have that terminology at that time, but it was like, yeah, you just kind of like really, really want to be able to make room for free will, so you're just carving it out in your false theory of causality or whatever else. So that seems to be what's going on there.
Rationalism, basically.
Pretty much. Zonas, did you have anything else?
No, I'm good. I just thought maybe I was going crazy and maybe I was being like gaslit essentially, which I was.
Too easy, man. Well, appreciate it. We'll go to, as I said, official Jello next, and then we'll hit up Prib, and then we will keep things rolling. So, official Jello, please go ahead.
Hello, hello. Can I be heard properly?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I believe it was during the last Remnant episode that Acorn mentioned something about objectivist aesthetics. And I think what Zulu said in the conversation afterwards was that the objectivist way to judge if an artwork is of quality is to look at the idea it tries to get across and judge if it manages to successfully get them across. And subsequently, if you want to look at it on a more deeper level, then you check if these ideas themselves are actually worthwhile and correct. And that immediately became it immediately piqued my interest because it was something that I had basically thought about and had come to a similar conclusion a couple years ago, before I was really even interested in objectivism, or before I even knew what it was. And I was hoping I could hear a more detailed explanation on how it works, so I can know if I had a good reason to even come to that conclusion, or if I just got lucky, basically.
Yeah, no, so that is the basic idea behind the objectivist aesthetics, is that the role of aesthetics is to concretize one's philosophy, because it's utterly important for man to have his philosophy at any given moment, but it's very difficult to go through all the steps needed to prove some remote conclusion in philosophy. So you have to have it instantly recognizable. It's the classic "what would Jesus do" thing. That's like kind of the essence of Ayn Rand's approach to aesthetics. So, and that is the way you should judge art, definitely.
Okay, then a question I would have. Actually, I think I just interrupted Monhop if he was trying to say something.
Oh no, I was assuming you were done, so that's why I was going to speak. So no, you go ahead.
No, my next question would be: how do you judge artworks which are purely, which maybe don't have any concrete, maybe not concrete ideas, or especially not philosophical ideas? For example, something like a nice landscape that has been painted. How would that be judged, as far as artwork is concerned?
Well, so the objectivist view is that insofar as it is art, it is concretizing some philosophy. So I give a more in-depth explanation of this in my video on AI art, where I give a pretty solid treatment to the objectivist aesthetics. So like if it's a really nice landscape, you have to be thinking about like, okay, well, what is this concretizing? Is this, trying to show the beauty in the world and like how life is great, or is this showing like how the universe is malevolent and it's going to crush man at every step, like this? And if you start thinking in these terms, you see it in every piece of art. If you think it through. Like, what is this, like, literally showing me? Well, how does it make me feel? Right? This is it's reflective of your psychoepistemology, is the term Ayn Rand uses. So, like, and this applies, I believe, I agree with Ayn Rand, this applies to all artworks. Now, insofar as it doesn't, you know, people are sloppy when they say art. Like, people say, like, video games are art. It's like, okay, well, is Pong art? No, I don't think Pong is art. I think it's a game. You know, there might be games which have artistic components to them. That doesn't mean that games are art as such. I also don't think that photography is art as such. Like, you can have a photograph of something which has no artistic merit to it. You could even perhaps paint something which has no artistic merit to it. Like, in a certain sense, if you write something down, that's a type of painting. Right? You're putting ink onto canvas, right? But I don't think that's art, because it doesn't qualify as concretizing some philosophy.
Well, what about like modernist, like splashes of paint? I guess that's not art either.
Well, so I think for the most part it is art. It's just very bad art, in the objective sense, because they're concretizing a terrible, terrible philosophy, where, you know, like a Rothko or something. Like, the philosophy they're concretizing there is that man can't know anything. Everything needs to be deconstructed. There are no concepts that man can get to. So you can't represent a concept, of course. It's just going to be disintegrated splodges, right?
Yeah, so it's basically just the intention behind it, and
they will tell you this pretty openly. Like, if you hear anybody trying to justify modernist art, they'll basically say the exact same words I'm saying, just in different terms. Like, so I don't think Ayn Rand was off base at all with her analysis of aesthetics here.
Right. I think, like, I guess games could be in a similar sense, like, as much as an art form as painting. Like, you could say painting can not be art, and I also think, like, video games, yeah, you also say video games can be art, artistic types things in them. Like, some games, for example, don't let you make a lot of choices. I think that's can be like a philosophical issue, and like some AAA games, like, I think single player games.
I would say,
and some let you have choices. Sorry,
I would say even the more choices you get to make in a game, the less likely it is to be art. Because if you're making all the choices, then it becomes a lot more like, you know, like the game, like chess. I make every single choice when I'm playing a game of chess. Chess isn't art. It's not even close to being art. Whereas, like,
or sports, like, you know,
yeah,
are you
like,
going to call, you know, FIFA a like an art? Like, not really, because you're entirely in control.
whereas, you know, there are these, like, games where, like, they get criticized because they're bad games, where it's basically just you're watching a movie, and every, like, so often you press the X button, and then the movie gets to progress. Like, those are more liable to be art, but they're very terrible games, right? Because it's not very fun to play.
But would you say something like you know, a Red Dead Redemption 2 like finds that balance between, like, you could probably argue it's an art form because it's a linear story with a clear, like, conclusion that you're inevitably going to reach, but there's still an element of choice in how you go about it, I suppose.
So it's very possible that I haven't played it, to be clear, so I don't know specifically. But it's very possible that it has artistic components within it, like the story, so on and so forth. Like how they've tried to compose certain cutscenes, you know, that can be artistic. So yeah, it could have artistic components, but insofar as you're, like, you know, riding around on your horse and it's like, I want to rob this guy right now, well, that's not actually part of the art then.
Like, I was thinking, like, the fact that a single player game, story driven, perhaps, like, can respect your choices and have narrative around different choices and all that. I think that in a sense is artistic. Maybe I'm not this
Yeah,
expert on aesthetics.
You could, for instance, have like a massive tree of options you can pick and make a different art piece for each of those options. Right, that's possible. Like, what's that game with the Life is Strange, for instance? They don't actually have real choices, by the way. Every choice leads basically to the same place. But imagine they did do a game like that. Like, Detroit Become Human. I believe they did something like that. Where you could have basically like thousands of stories embedded into one game, and each of those individual stories could be a piece of art. Like, it comments upon the choices you're making.
Like, well, yeah,
like,
but
it could happen, but like in
the
general,
fact that you can choose itself too.
Yeah.
Could be like artistic.
Yeah, sure. But in general, the more choices you get to make, the less likely it is to be art. I would definitely stick by that.
Sure. Right. Makes sense.
For sure. No, I appreciate that. Let me hit up Prib because he has been waiting for a while. So Prib, please jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I don't think like Hoppe's like a main contention with the Mises Institute was over like some like tangential relation to Malay. I think it was mostly because of he viewed it as being like controlled by Joe Slano, because like he like spoke a lot about like Lou Rockwell and him being like in very poor health, and he thinks that like Joe Salerno and his circle is like is like monitoring his like messages or something, because he said that like his wife like confirmed that he can't really like write back, and then like 2 days later he wrote something for the Mises Institute, like apparently, and like I just think that that was his main issue, but that he thinks that Rockwell is being like controlled by Salerno, and he thinks that like the institute is being like compromised from the inside, and they're like, I guess, like selling out, I guess.
Oh, it's definitely the case that he was making that argument, and that seems to be an element of it. But I think it's also pretty undeniable that the melee stuff has been a factor. Like, he even says as much in Vadis. He just talks about De Soto and I think it was De Soto, and his extolling the virtues of melee. So I think it's an element of both. I will say, I have been told by a fairly credible source that Hopper is not correct about his assumptions with regard to Lou Rockwell. That's all I'm going to say about that. I don't want to say who that person was or what they specifically said, but I just know that there are people within the Mises Institute who would definitely dispute what Hopper is saying with respect to Lou Rockwell. So worth keeping in mind as well. But yeah, look, I think these things can have multiple factors. What is at the fundamental root of it? I mean, the other thing, as you can see on the Quo Vadis page, one of the other things that Hopper brought up was the fact that he didn't feel the Mises Institute sufficiently celebrated Rothbard's 100th birthday, which I can kind of see where he's coming from. If it is the case that the only thing that the Mises Institute kind of offered was, a donation request email that was sent out apparently, or correspondence, then like it would be nice for him to do more. But at the same time, like it is like the 100th birthday of someone who is, no longer alive. So again, obviously Rothbard and Hopper had a very close and deep personal connection and relationship, and I can understand why the modern Mises Institute, a lot of those people weren't around when Rothbard was alive. So I can understand why you might feel like the Mises Institute has gotten younger and less attached to Rothbard himself. I can definitely understand why that would happen. So, but I also get where Hopper's coming from, where it's like, Rothbard was his hero and he clearly loves him very, very dearly, which I totally respect and admire about him. But yeah, these things seem to be multifactorial, I suppose, and I definitely agree that the the Salerno stuff and Hoppe's perception of what's going on there is definitely a factor in it, for sure. Did also want to say, popped up in the Jumbotron at the top of the page, our man Tax Brass has been axed from X once again. He got his backup X page deleted. So Zulu's obviously recently collabed with Tax Brass, so it's very sad to hear that he will have to resume communicating on X via some other means going forward, which is sad to hear.
Presumably through a third party who is, maybe his secretary or something. If like his secretary makes an account, or his identical twin brother, presumably it'll be something like that rather than him making some sort of an alt
exactly.
account.
Yeah, because Tax Brass is not the sort of person to make an alt account and try to skirt the bans or anything. You definitely never do something like that.
By the way,
yeah, go ahead.
see, just like half an hour ago, no, not half an hour ago, a few hours ago, when I posted about him getting permanished, he replied to me in my DMs, by the way, is my account suspended? While he was suspended, by the way. Oh.
But as for why Tax Brass got suspended, someone asked. Look, I'll just say this: Tax Brass says some pretty based things.
He has the darndest things.
Sometimes.
I
hope that came through to people.
I believe
when he and Zulu collabed.
Yeah, I believe for his other brother's account, the original account, I believe he started a hashtag rape Dave Smith, and it didn't go down too well.
That got him banned. Correct.
Yeah, it was him. It was him, bro.
Yeah.
It was Dave Smith all along that got both of his twin brothers' accounts banned.
Yeah. Dave got in contact with Donald Trump because, as you know, Dave and Donald are like this. They're like two peas in a pod, those two. And then Trump got in touch with Elon, who brought down the hammer on Act Braps. So it's a real shame, but hopefully he'll, his secretary will speak on his behalf going forward at some point. Do you want to hear from? So I got burned by Sue last time. I called upon her and then she vanished. I'm gonna go out on a limb again. Hopefully, Sue, aka Eudaimonia, is here and happy to speak. So please go ahead if you're here.
Me?
Yes.
Me? I'm sorry. No, I received a phone call, so I have to leave. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
I received an out of office client call. Anyways, I just wanted to say this whole HOPPE thing kind of reminds me of the Ayn Rand and Nathaniel Branden drama. When Ayn Rand first publicly denied Nathaniel Branden and kind of ostracized him, nobody knew why and nobody had any type of evidence, and they still rebuked Branden. But nobody questioned what happened, Brendan. What did go wrong? Why did this person let go of you? Why is Ayn Rand not talking to you anymore? No one ever tried to get evidence. They're Ayn Rand rebuked him, so it must be true, and they all started hating him. Now, I'm being neutral about right now. I'm gonna be neutral about what happened between Branden and Rand, but the main point of the idea is no one tried to get evidence. They just acted based on gossip and whatever one person said. And I noticed the same thing is very happening with the HOPPE and the Ms. Institute drama too. I'm sorry if you guys already talked about this in the beginning. I joined half an hour late, but everyone is freedom for HOPPE. HOPPE is being persecuted. This is happening. Blah blah blah. Ms. Institute went Jewish and leftist and whatever old ladies tote. They're yeah, Ms. Institute what Vogue, and we don't know what happened. We really don't have evidence of what happened unless I'm wrong, but it seems based on the conversation I joined, we really don't have any evidence. HOPPE, I checked Kinsella's article, there's zero information given on why HOPPE was let go. There's zero. He wasn't let go, right? They just removed his honorary title. He was not even working for the Mises Institute. He just had an honorary title, and the Mises Institute had zero information on why this happened. So both sides are being secretive about it. So why is there such a like? This goes for both sides. Like Hoppe shouldn't be lynched. At the same time, Mises shouldn't be lynched because simply we don't have evidence. Like, and everyone, all these like grown ass men acting like some gypsy woman, like middle aged gypsy woman in some like gypsy neighborhood, just gossiping about the whole situation. But what happened to like not lynching people without having sufficient evidence? Like, what the hell?
Sue couldn't get through a fucking rant without turking out and start talking about gypsies. It's just so typical. It's like you wonder why she's had her previous account banned as well. For fuck's sake. It's like that. I posted on Liquid Zulu No Context recently a clip of Zulu saying, "Give me what I need. Stop talking about Jews and gypsies, old man." That's kind of how I feel right now. Yeah, no, I mean the the fact is that, and this is what I was going to say at some point as well, is the whole thing is just very, very sad, and it's just so petty, and it's over, these little squabbles about who's really got the power at the Mises Institute. Um, Look, these guys just need to get over themselves. Life's too short to fight people over this sort of thing, and it's a real shame that it seems to be whenever like a libertarian scholar gets to their 70s, they start, and not just libertarian scholars, but they just start, beefing with everyone over random stuff. It's like, guys, come on, you guys were colleagues and friends for decades and decades and decades. And you're going to nuke it over, you know, the fact that one of your speakers at a recent conference had some nice things to say about Harvey MLA. Like, it's also tiresome, and I don't like it at all whatsoever. I think there's bigger issues that we need to be talking about, and better lines to be drawn, as Zulu and I were talking about earlier.
Yeah, the real truth is that the coal mine controls the Mises Institute. They want you fighting wars against each other, but you won't fight against the coal mine. And coal mine in charge. We're in charge right now, guys.
Coal mine? What do you mean by coal mine?
Our group chat.
It's a secretive cabal of the people really pulling the strings in society. Like it goes like the Mises Institute, and then above that is Harvey MLA, and then above that's Netanyahu, and then Jeffrey Epstein, and then above them all is the coal mine. The coal mine are we're pulling the strings. But no, Sue, did you want to add anything else?
No, that was all. I just wanted to like remind people like lynching without evidence is just not cool. Like you don't know what you're talking about, and you may be lynching someone who hasn't like done anything wrong, and that's just like and not a good thing to do. And it's always wise to like know what you're talking about and have the sufficient evidence before like partaking in social lynch. And I know there's a lot of libertarians who are like, oh, Mrs. Institute went woke. They want leftists. They accept Israeli money, or like vice versa. It's like Hoppe did this and Hoppe did that. That's why they like let them go. It's like, dude, you don't know anything about the inner of what happened, and both sides seems to stay secret about it. So maybe you should just like not talk.
You heard it here first, guys. Hopper should stop behaving like a gypsy woman and start behaving like a Turkish woman.
I'm not claiming Hoppe. I'm not saying no one. I'm talking about like people on Twitter, like Toad. Mr. Toad claims like Mrs. Institute went woke, acting like a
I mean, that's
gypsy
this is
woman,
fucking
just
loser.
gossiping around, or like all these like accounts appearing as like, oh, Mrs. Institute is just woke and leftist now. That's why they whatever remove the title of Hoppe. Like that's ridiculous. Mrs. Institute did not go woke. Okay, what the hell?
Well,
Look, if I was Hopper,
the thing
the fact
is,
that oh, you go ahead, yeah.
that Toad is literally a cuckold, and a gambling addict. So I feel like that's kind of
what I
woke
was going to
coded.
say is the fact that Toad was supportive of me. If I was Hopper, the fact that Toad was supportive of me would be enough for me to realize that I was making a mistake, because that dude has never been right about anything in his life. I'm just to be totally honest with you.
He's a living and breathing litmus test.
Pretty much. No, appreciate it, Sue. Always fun to have you. Let's go to Freedom Club next, and then we've got a couple more hands that'll be repeats. But I want to hear from Freedom Club first, so please jump in and go ahead.
Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So Zulu made a mention of how we need to accept people who are mainly if they attempt to use the NAP only to assert any position, and they do so honestly, even if they err, then they should be accepted into the whole conversation, and we should be allowed to debate them or reject what they claim, etc., etc. How would that go with thicker libertarians? That is, people who believe that not only the NAP matters, that is, there are other principles we need to be mindful of, who might not always be equal to, but some might be equal to the NAP, as I might propose. How should we be dealt with?
Yeah, so as far as libertarianism is concerned, I think the only principle is the non-aggression principle. Now, certainly there are other important principles out there, the principle of justice, the principle of honesty, so on and so forth. But like, you know, as we are fundamentally a coalition, we are a principled coalition. We can have Christian libertarians, we can have objectivist libertarians, we can have libertarians from all across the philosophical spectrum, as long as we agree on this one issue of the non-aggression principle. That's all that matters. So I'm not sure what other principles out there would be properly classified as, like, that's a libertarian principle. Like, I just don't know what they would be. Like, everybody seems to have different ideas on what they would be. Like, oh, no, you gotta care about, like, feminism, or you gotta care about fucking whatever else. Like, it seems to me that thick libertarianism is always just used as a way to, like, sneak in some other ideology where, like, no, you gotta be a leftist, no, you gotta be a rightist, this, that, and the other thing. Like, no, we're all libertarians here.
Could these principles, say, of honesty and justice and others you mentioned, and others say you haven't, could they be equal to the NAP? That is, if one violates them, could people aggress against them?
No. You can never aggress. Even if you violate the NAP, that doesn't mean that people are allowed to aggress against you. It's called the non-aggression principle. Like, that means nobody can ever aggress in any instance, right?
I mean, okay, so of course, but you know, as in using self-defense, say, if someone is lying, say you believe in honesty, and someone is lying to you, could you, well, use actions that would quote unquote violate their right, say, to their property or whatever else?
Well, no, because lying is just lying, right? It doesn't approach the level of law yet.
Okay, so let's assume there are people who do see lying as bad as aggressive. Could they be accepted?
If they think that you're allowed to, you know, beat liars, and they're not asserting this comes from the NEP, they're asserting that this comes from the principle of honesty or whatever, then no, they wouldn't be libertarians because they reject the non-aggression principle.
Mm-hmm. I see. That gives much food for thought. Thank you.
Sweet. Let me hit up.
Before we go into
to
repeats, I do want to go over the super chats we've accumulated.
Oh yeah, so I was going to hear from Hamster, but yeah, go super chats and then we'll go to Hamster.
Wait, what the fuck is he? He didn't have his hands up. Whatever.
Oh well, he's asked me if he can speak.
Oh, okay.
Like in the back channels. But you go ahead.
Sure. So first is from the Lazy Fae for $20 US. Thank you very much. While I'm more philosophically grounded than I once was in my ANCAP beliefs, recent grifts, prags, neo-prags, infighting, and ongoing world events have made me regrettably pessimistic for the trajectory of the movement. I'm very optimistic for the trajectory of the movement. We're going in a very positive direction. I have completely swallowed the white pill. Just look at how, principled libertarianism is now like the forefront. Like it's a big issue. It's people know about this now. People are out here like Zuluing all over the place. This is a known thing, and it'll keep being a known thing for long into the future. We're in a very positive direction here. Yes, thank you very much for the money. Next we have Chaorix for 2667, 67, for €5. Thank you very much. What is the strategy to people like? What is the strategy to people like me who live in a place where libertarianism is all but unknown and the population is hostile to it, aka France? So definitely not canvassing. I think that's going to be pretty much pointless. I would say, content creation would be the main thing you should do. That's what I do. I'm in the same boat. And then we got another from the Lazy Fae for $5 where I did respond to this in chat, but I suppose I could also rope in Monhop on this one. Where he's asking, do I constitute a presence? I do hope I wasn't intruding on the last Remnant panel. And my answer was like, if you were let on, then definitely you're not. Then definitely you've met Monhop's bar, like I was saying earlier, where he wasn't letting somebody on because they had like 0 followers, 0 posts, nothing. I think if you're above that, then it's fine. I assume Monhop agrees with that.
If you are no longer welcome on the space, you'll know. That's how I'll put it. So look, if you're on and you're speaking, like I got no qualms about cutting people off and saying, hey, you're not welcome back. I haven't had to do it yet. That's been the thing, is you haven't seen me have to do that yet. But I would have no qualms about doing it if necessary. So that goes out for everyone. If I haven't said anything about you not being welcome back, assume you're more than welcome back, and you can speak and contribute whenever you want. So that's what I have to say about that. Oh, were you done with super chats, Zulu? Or
yes, that was the last one.
Oh, okay, cool, sweet. Well, as I said, want to hear from Hamsters next. So, Hamsters, please jump in. Welcome to the stage.
Hello. So I mean, I kind of just had a lot of questions for you guys. So not to sound like conspiratorial, but do we think Walter Block is coming back, or?
I would assume no. I think that bridge seems to have been burned. I mean, it could happen. I don't know, but I don't think to talk about the conspiracy angle. Like, I don't think that the plan was let's get Hopper out so we can bring like Walter Block back. Like, I don't think that's what was going on.
It's
If
Right.
that's what you were
But
going
I
for.
do think I was gonna say I do think that part of it is sort of like Hoppe's like distaste for Millet and the sort of like pro-Israel crowd, right? Which Hoppe,
Yeah,
or sorry,
for
Block
sure.
is starting.
For sure. Yeah, that's definitely an element from my perspective of what's going on here.
Yeah,
it's crazy that Israel is the biggest divider for libertarians and objectivists too, by the way.
I do think
Well,
it's highly unlikely that Block comes back. I agree with Monhop. It seems like pretty much everybody went along with Hopper in excommunicating him. Like, I mean, if Millet
Right.
did have all this pool, as has been alleged, within the Mises Institute, I think, they would have just gone, no, we're sticking with Block and we're getting rid of Hopper instead. That doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be that Hopper has some personal issues with some of the people in the Mises Institute, and that doesn't translate to them suddenly wanting Block.
Okay. So are you guys still broadly supporters of the Mises Institute, or what kind of like sort of direction do you guys think they're going into?
Well, they just followed me on X, so I'm now duty bound to
Oh, okay. Yes.
support them. No, only joking. I mean, yeah, like I think broadly they do a good job, and I think they provide a valuable service with respect to promoting the ideas that I support. So yeah, I
Right.
still have no qualms with
So
supporting the institute.
right. I was gonna say because Hoppe isn't exactly like a big contributor to the Mises Institute anymore, right? Like the dude is like basically retired.
Yeah, and he has his own thing now with the Property and Freedom Society as well. So he seems to devote more of his time to that.
Mhm. And have you guys, by the way, have you guys seen like the people at Cato kind of shitting on Block or sorry, HOPPE?
Yeah, I think there was that one tweet by was it Narasta?
Phil Magnus. Yeah, oh Norasta.
Hey,
he was-
Magnus is not at Cato.
Oh, sorry, yeah. But they're generally around like the same proximity, the same like sort of neoclassical, neoliberal types.
Yeah. Like so,
Yeah.
for people listening, Narast, I believe, was saying that the number of economists at the Mises Institute went down by 0. I don't know if that was
Which is
Narasta
technically
or somebody.
correct because HOPPE isn't at the Mises Institute. So I guess he was technically correct about that, although not in spirit.
Yeah, he was definitely saying that Hoppe is not an accomplished economist, which is that's retarded. Shut up. They just don't like it. Like,
I mean,
they just don't
no
like his social
offense, but-
views. Like clearly.
Mises Institute since Rothbard hasn't produced much in terms of economics. They're mostly on like cultural stuff at this point.
That doesn't mean
I
that
think
Hoppe
Hoppe has
wasn't.
some,
Like fucking DeSoto. Like he's done a bunch on economics. Like he's associated with the Mises Institute. Hence, like the whole drama.
And Bob Murphy as well.
Well, in terms of like economic impact, I don't think it's been like exactly revolutionary within the past couple decades, but
Yeah, I don't think they have like really did anything revolutionary since like Rothbard.
there's good like Hoppe essays on like public goods, and I know a lot of the I know they're doing like stuff with like reforming capital theory and whatnot, but did you guys also see the Phil Magnus tweet?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
Base.
I
love Phil
long-standing
Magnus.
HOPPE critic.
Hoppe is Hitler.
Did he
He
actually
did not
that?
say that. He did not
Or
say
He
that.
said, let me find the exact tweet. I think.
Bro, I'm snitching on
you.
you to Professor Magnus. He's gonna kick you out of his chat, dude.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't know who I am enough.
He did not say that.
He's like Well, he was asking Grok if Hans Hermann Hoppe was like a Nazi, but
Yeah, he's exaggerating, like Hoppe being a Nazi. He does think that Hoppe is being ridiculous about like how societies will directly go for racial discrimination, and Hoppe has absolutely zero evidence that people actually will naturally prefer racial discrimination if they have the freedom, which is like kind of proven to be wrong. But yeah,
have
he
some pretty
doesn't
strong
go
evidence.
too far. He does go too far, thinking like Hoppe is like a literal racist. But like he didn't say like, oh, he's like literally Hitler.
well, I mean Hayek was pretty racist. No, I mean I've seen a few pretty.
I mean that's okay.
Racist.
Like that, we weren't talking about Hayek though.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying like it doesn't really. I don't think anyone. I just
Yeah,
don't
you
think
know
anyone really
who
cares
else
if
was
people are-
racist? Adolf Hitler. Like so what? Like different people. Like Hayek is a different
No,
person. Why are we
well, I'm
talking
just
about
saying
him?
I don't think people care if economists are racist. We just like kind of just look at their contributions independently.
Yeah, I agree.
Hell yeah. Did you want to add anything
So
else?
I do have a
I think that
tweet
was,
I've got to share with you here, Monhop, to put in the jumbotron. It is
Alright.
it's Stefan Kinsella doing a jack off gif towards Phil Magnus during this whole thing.
Where did you send this to me?
I'm gonna send it to you in just a moment. I just found this breaking news of Stefan Kinsella doing a jack off gif towards Phil Magnus. It's got to be in the jumbotron. Hold on.
Definitely.
There you go. I sent it to you in the
I will say that
Twitter DMs.
I will say that regardless like of his hatred to Hoppe, Phil Magnus is a great economist. Like he's a great
like
economist.
his
He was
stuff
my
about,
professor. He's a great guy. He's a great
Phil-
economist. He spent a lot of his
fine.
time writing articles against communists.
He just seems a little bit pretentious sometimes.
I
I would agree with that.
He's like constantly on Twitter. So I think he's just like it's similar with Kinsella. Like they're like unnecessarily mean on Twitter. I don't know. Maybe like Gen X doesn't know how to use Twitter.
I like his stuff on Marxism, where he has like the synthetic Marx.
Yeah,
I
but
quite enjoy that.
I work as a student with him. He's like really a great guy. He's actually like the nicest guy ever. he's actually a great economist too. He knows a lot. He studies a lot. He constantly reads and writes. Like he is like economist, his whole thing. And he does spend major of his career like debunking communists. That's like, yeah, he is a good guy. Like people shouldn't hate him just because like he thinks like Hoppe is racist or whatever.
Okay, I've put that in. Fucking hell. So it's now in the Jumbotron. Kinsella telling oh my god. Yeah, okay. So this is where we're at in the Hoppian revolt. Kinsella is now telling Phil Magnus to that he's a wanker. I think that's what he's going for now. So this is where we're at.
What the hell?
That's pretty funny. I see Prax Ben's here. Ben, did you want to jump in at all?
Yeah, Phil Magnus has blocked me twice because he's a pussy and he says false statements about Hoppe and then I correct him and he blocks me. Can't make arguments. So
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think as far as him making false assertions about Hoppe,
his criticism about Hoppe and Mons is pretty correct. It's just like he over exaggerates by calling Hoppe like a little racist. That's the only part I disagree with him.
Also, Praxman and I both managed to had the opportunity to brutally ratio Jeremiah Harding recently, so that was quite funny. Jeremiah Harding posted something about how, what did he say again? Zoran Mamdani is more libertarian than Javier Milei. So that's the kind of coal that's been getting posted on the timeline recently.
Why do people hate Milei again? Because he loves Israel.
Because it's an Israel thing. It is. That's what it is.
What's up with this one single country in the world where everyone's obsessed about and it like breeds more hatred than any other topic in the world?
Well, I can give you the answer to that question, and it's to do with the ethnic makeup of Israel. Look it up.
Or just the influence from the United States, I suppose.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, I definitely, I understand why, people don't like Israel, as a state, okay, not as a people, as a state. But
things that Hoppe and others criticize Milei for, other policies and such. I don't remember them, but
there's a central banking one. Hoppe thinks that Milei should have abolished the central bank already or something.
How can you do that when the country is still in debt, though? That's not realistic. America wouldn't let anyone to abolish their central bank when they're like heavily in debt to America. That's ridiculous.
Well, they already rolled over debt, and didn't they issue bonds at like 50%? Like
that's they already roll over debt. And they issue government bonds.
They've defaulted like several times.
But wait, let me check. Then maybe I'll move on. I thought they were like very huge into debt, like when Milei took over.
Well, they had a currency crisis partly because of like the chance of a Peronist regime. The like the socialist people.
Yeah. So it shows that in 2024 they were 85% debt to GDP, which is like insanely high. And it says right now it's 73%. They're 73% debt to GDP still.
Well, I mean, if they really wanted to, they could just not pay the debt and just abolish.
Yeah, okay. And that's ridiculous. Like not paying it up. When Greece tried that, when Greece was like in 2010s, they're like, oh yeah, we're just not gonna pay our debt. America and Germany got into a meeting with the Greek prime minister, and 2 hours later, we don't know what they talked in that meeting. 2 hours later, like, okay, we're paying our debt. Like, it's ridiculous to think that you're not going to pay your debt to international
institutions. There's probably some real Guantanamo Bay shit going on there.
Like, we don't know what they did to that Greek prime minister that he immediately changed his idea in 2 hours.
Obama pulled out the pliers and the car batteries for that one.
Yeah, like a country like Argentina is not going to be like being able to resist international institutions against like America and the West, and like, oh yeah, we're not going to pay our debts. By the way, that's not a
I
realistic
do
goal.
get the like the Austrian argument that like you only need to pay off your debt if you plan on getting into more debt, if that makes sense. Like as like you know, if a state is like, should we pay our debt or not? It's like, well, that only matters, like your credit rating and whatnot only matters if you plan on taking out more debt. So if you're not planning on doing it. But I do get like the geopolitical issues where it's like, hey, you know, you're basically going to turn yourself into a huge pariah
Yeah,
from the United States and whatnot if you just say, we're just not paying back.
yeah, because you have.
I will say on a pure legal point, objective
Wait,
law, of
but
course, it is proper for every single government right now to not pay off their debts, just dissolve the government, and none of those people who invest in the government get their money back. Like that, they're not actually owed any of that
yeah,
money.
I was gonna say because the only way they could pay it back would be through like taxation or selling bonds or
Yeah, and like
some
you
other
don't get to
form, right?
invest in the government and then be like complaining, like, no, my investment in the mob didn't pay off. Like, fuck off.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I 100% agree with the
So,
legal
I mean,
argument there.
this is not realistic. I do agree with you. Like, the scenario should be it's like everyone just doesn't pay their debt. But the reason why it's not realistic and Argentina is not going to take this, and it's like libertarians do have to come up with a solution to these problems if they want to, like, these steps to be actually taking, is that if Argentina said we're not paying our debt back, the first thing is that they will crash Argentinian peso, like immediately crash it. Even if they come up, if there's a free marketplace of currencies, they're gonna crash every single currency Argentina is gonna come up with. And their imports, like their full food medicine, is gonna be crazy expensive. These people, the Argentinians, will like struggle a lot. There's gonna be even more extreme inflation since their currency is going to weaken. And there's going to be a banking and savings crisis, and there's going to be a recession, and there's going to be political instability where America's probably going to be huge put blockade, like how they're doing it in like Iran or anything, where people are not going to have access to goods because America is going to completely economically block them. So it's like, yes, we can say that like all of this doesn't matter and still doesn't justify like paying debt back since it's like funded by taxation. But at the same time, like no one's going to do that if we cannot come up with a solution of what other governments and institutions will do when we take this action. Like what can be done once they do that, so it's like people don't die out of poverty.
I don't think the government should do anything really.
I mean, okay, then, like, do you understand why this thing is never gonna? I agree, but it's never gonna happen. Like, Millie is never going to say, "I'm not gonna pay that." No, like, even if he wanted, they're not gonna allow him because, like, there's this ridiculous democratic system. It's like you have to come up with a solution if you want the change to be done without sacrificing the NAP. I'm not saying like let's commit aggression for the sake of like I don't know a pragmatic solution, but it's like a solution has to be there, and you have to accept the fact that like majority of the world are not libertarians, and you're facing with very evil people, and there has to be a way to deal with this without like people being put into extreme poverty for the next like 20 years of their life not being able to afford food, right? So if you don't do that, no one's gonna follow you. And I don't understand like this idea of reaching the remnants, but then we can't do any change.
I will say one good idea. Obviously, I'm not in the game of centrally planning liberty or anything like that. One good idea is to immediately cut every single expense. You know, stop all like the state funding of like pensions, welfare, yada yada yada. And then you're probably making a massive budget surplus immediately, and you can use that to pay off your debt or whatever. But I will say this is all very very downstream. Like if this is a very good issue to worry about, if we're in the position of worrying about, what about the state debt, then we've already pretty much won. Like we've already pretty much got the anarchist region, and like if it is some sort of untoward French style upheaval, I'll say that. If it's a French style upheaval of the system, then there is no more government. So who are the debts owed to? They gotta kind of renegotiate there. Who are they going to negotiate with? I think it could go a lot smoother, perhaps.
So I got two thoughts on this real quick. First of all, I totally agree with Zulu and others who have said, like, you know, you're not, if you lent money to the state, you're not owed a single penny of that back. That was a bad thing that you should not have done. You know, voluntarily funding the state. With that said, just as, you know, that's the correct legal position, it's also the correct legal position to say that you're, as a, you know, individual, you are not, you know, liable or obligated to end every aggression that could be occurring immediately. Okay, so Milei allowing or, you know, not preventing aggressions from continuing doesn't make him, you know, an aggressor himself. Okay, he might be permitting aggression, but that doesn't make him an aggressor. So that's point number one. Now, if he has engaged in, you know, theft via the state, then okay, then we can call him an aggressor in that domain. But I'm just saying the mere fact that debt has continued to, you know, accumulate or whatever doesn't necessarily make him an aggressor. The second point I was going to make is that this is just the pitfalls with politics. Okay, this is why Hopper was correct when he said, you know, libertarians in what must be done, libertarians shouldn't focus on, you know, winning presidential elections or what. I mean, it's nice. It's good that, you know, libertarians, if they win presidential elections in any given country, but it should not be our primary focus because fundamentally, you know, politics is a difficult game to play, and Millet is fighting against a very, at times, hostile parliament, as far as I'm aware, where despite being the president, he only had a very small number of seats in the Argentinian parliament
Yep.
that were under his
Yep.
control.
He's a
So,
coalition government. It's a coalition government. He's not even the president on his own.
yeah, so and to that end, like, look, if he wants to get legislation passed to, you know, cut regulation and cut spending, he's got to do so with the approval of people who are not aligned with our interests. So it's a difficult game, and that's why, again, as I said, the libertarian strategy shouldn't be to focus too much on, like, oh, who can we get in charge of, like, some
Exactly.
random country. Like, it should be, as, you know, Zulu and I have said, gathering the remnant. That's what we're here to do. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
go ahead, sorry.
it seems so aesthetically wrong to me that we anarchists are focused on democracy and also like excusing him, like, oh, he didn't do this and that because he didn't have enough power. Like, that's exactly how other people obsessed about democracy speak about it.
Okay, but what if that's just literally true, though? You know what I mean?
I mean,
Like,
he
what if
doesn't
it's
have
just true?
power. Like, democracy is not dictated. Like, he doesn't have uncontrolled power to do whatever he wants in Argentina.
I don't think
There are a
he
lot of systems. He's in the parliament. He has to pass things through parliament. And his whole ministry is not just his party. He's a coalition government. He did coalition with other parties. That's how he won. And even within his own party, there's democracy within that party, right? So you cannot just pass whatever he wants. Like, even if Millie was like, guys, we need to, like, just not pay debt, there's no way the whole system built around, like, paying debt is going to allow him to do that. Presidents are not that powerful.
Basically impossible, really, to make like any like super fundamental change to it from top down. Basically, like, everyone in government and surrounding government in the whole system are guided by their own corrupt philosophy, and that's not gonna change if you have quote unquote libertarian president like Javier Milei.
I mean, you can have better situations, such as, like, what Zulu mentioned earlier. Budgets, like, not have budget deficits, drastically reduce budgets. So, and then every year the budget decreases and decreases.
People are more libertarian in that general area or society. There, I don't think it comes top
Budget
down.
deficit can easily be something the president can get done, and it can be a top-down approach. Like, that's not budget deficits are not, like, super radical things to do. But, like, yeah,
No,
like, demolishing central banking is, like, super radical, and it's hard for the president to do that.
I don't think long term it's gonna change anything. Maybe like short term, like you can reduce it there, but I think it's just gonna bounce back if the people don't have like any philosophy there.
I mean, what's your
I heard some say like that's defense, but I think you're also just wasting a lot of resources just to get in there. think it's kind of useless.
I definitely agree
Can I
with
say
that.
something?
Yeah, jump in.
There's something that Per Beelan said that it's entrepreneurial efforts. Yeah, I love Per Beelan. He's so good. He said is that entrepreneurial efforts are what we should be going after, since entrepreneurs are what actually change the world. And he brought up examples like Apple, like Microsoft, like Excel, great examples of how entrepreneurs just genuinely change the world, and as well as other entrepreneurial endeavors.
Not
that he also
currently, but
talked
they
about.
used to, I guess. I'm not a fan of those companies right now, but I suppose they did.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, of course, they're corporatist now.
You can use Claude
But-
if you want a better example of like the ones that we're currently happy with. I'm sure Microsoft Excel was very revolutionary in 1980.
Yeah, of course. The main thing he said is that entrepreneurs don't wait for promotion, is what he said.
Exactly.
It's a brilliant quote.
You can just steal all of the books in the world as fair use.
It's a very good example he provided. Just making a new technology and like making sure to avoid regulation and all that stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
well,
it's like Elon Musk. He's sort of libertarian. Yeah, he has genuinely changed the world.
Yeah, sure.
So there was another topic that I actually wanted to bring up, and I wasn't sure if we were going to get a chance to because of I thought we might end up going pretty long on HOPPE and whatnot. But what I wanted to bring up was, so obviously I don't know if you guys have been paying attention much lately, but there's a little bit of a war going on in the Middle East at the moment, and it's obviously affecting people crazily enough. So one of the key, obviously, impacts has been on fuel prices, right? Because obviously the Strait of Hormuz being a pretty critical, trade route has led to, pretty significant concerns about, oil and whatnot getting to where it needs to get to. And so, I mean, that's been felt obviously all across the world, and it's been felt in Australia. Like, to give you some context, obviously Australia, for the Americans here that measure in gallons or whatever, we measure in liters, and I think that's probably true of British as well. They measure in gallons. We measure in liters. So prior to this whole state of affairs, 91 unleaded petrol would set you back about $1.50 to $1.60 a litre, depending on where you were. Could climb a little bit higher in more like remote areas, but that's typically about what you'd find it at across Australia. As a result of this little conflict, it's jumped up to about $2.60, $2.50 to $2.60. So like a 60% price hike, which is obviously monumental. And one of the implications of that has obviously been the usual suspects coming out and talking about how this is, price gouging by all the petrol companies who are, just raping the consumer for every dollar that he's worth. And there's no good reason why anyone would rise prices during a fuel crisis, during a supply chain crisis. It's completely unreasonable to raise prices and whatnot. Anyway, so obviously the government's been called on by people to enact measures to counteract this, which obviously we wouldn't support. But one of the measures that's been proposed and that's been implemented recently was actually a cut on fuel excise taxes. So the Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister of Australia, came out a couple of days ago and said he was going to cut fuel excise taxes in half. So the way excise taxes work in Australia is basically it's just a flat rate. So it was 52 cents per litre of petrol was the excise tax that was tacked on to petrol that was being sold to the final consumer. That's been cut by 26 cents, so cut in half, and then I think a little bit extra now.
Clarification. You said it was 26 or 56. Either way,
52. 52
okay,
was
52 was the one before. Was that included in the $1.50 a liter? Or
correct? Yeah. So that's the thing that I like pointing out to people that 33% of the price that you
Of the
pay at the
cost
Bowser
is a flat tax of
was the excise tax that the Australian government was taking. Correct.
and I guess just flagging also the conversion between gallons and liters is almost exactly 1 to 4. So what's being described here is like $4 pre-tax and $6 post-tax gas going up to $10 or $11 gas.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I leave it to the audience to decide how Americans react to $6 gas. Even before.
What was that? Sorry, Adrian.
We would riot over $6, let alone $11 gas.
Yeah, it's
$6 gas. Wait, what? Where?
Well,
and I mean,
Australia.
honestly, in a lot of in Europe, $6, $5 is pretty common.
I mean, it's right now $4 in the US, so we're not that far away, bro.
I know, but I just mean like normal. That's like normal for Europe.
Yeah, like to clarify, it's just like when gas is $2.50 in the United States, gas is $4 in Australia. Is the conversion before the tax?
Isn't Australian dollar is like
no, but like
higher?
is in American? Oh, American.
US dollar.
Yeah, they're not quite US dollars.
It's actually only about 67
Australian
cents on the
dollar is
by the way.
different. So $1 equals to how many Australian?
About $67 $1.50, I think.
Yeah, $1 US is 1.45 Australian dollars.
Yeah.
So you have to consider the currency.
Okay. Oh, so they're approximately the same price.
Yeah, it's actually not that extreme. Anyway, so here's what I want to say on this. Obviously,
it says it's cheaper than the US.
Obviously, the naive kind of libertarian or the initial prima facie position from a libertarian standpoint would be that, like, this is good that taxes are being cut. And I get it. Okay. My contention would be, and this is where I'm bringing in our friend Nikolai Pavkovich's arrow of regression thing here, where basically what is going on here is not the government saying, oh, you know what, guys, you were right, libertarians. Taxation is theft. And, we really want to abolish all taxes. But right now, all we can kind of get past Parliament is like a halving of the fuel excise tax. So that's what we're going to do. And then we promise, down the line, we'll start cutting more taxes. What's actually going on is there's been a demand spike and a supply shortage. And the government is saying, hey, we can solve this problem. We can solve the excess demand and lack of supply of fuel by cutting taxes. And so I want to, pose it to the floor, and I want to get Zulu's thought on this. Is this, a good working example where we're seeing a case where, prima facie, it's good when taxes get cut, but when you consider the underlying methodology at play, it's like, well, all that's really going on is the government is saying, hey, we can solve a problem temporarily. That's the other point I wanted to make as well. This is a temporary tax cut. It's a 3-month-long tax cut. They're saying for 3 months, we're going to cut fuel excise in half, and then it's going to go back to normal. So is this a good example where we can see, like, hey, a tax cut, in theory it's all right, but it's not being accompanied by any lower spending. In fact, spending is probably going to go up in order to, I'm sure they'll want to put out stimulus packages and stuff for a slowing economy. So, like, Zulu, do you kind of get where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I get where you're going with this. I would have to know like the specifics of the policy to truly give my like seal of approval or whatever. But yeah, the basic idea behind the Pavkovich arrow of regression is that what you need to look at fundamentally is which way is the arrow pointing. Is it pointing towards total capitalism or total socialism? Because we know from Mises, it's one way or the other. There is no middle road, right? So is this policy saying that the government can solve problems, or is it saying that the government can't solve problems? If it can't, then capitalism. If it can, then socialism.
This seems neutral to me, honestly. I mean, I think just the way that you would analyze this from maybe a more Chicagoan perspective is that the important factor here is the slope of like the supply and demand curves. And in this case, supply is vertical, right? Supply is fixed. If you pay more, you cannot, under the current situation, like produce enough oil to like overcome the shortage and lower the price again. I mean, I guess like maybe in some like really far-fetched like world, Australian gas prices are so high that they replace Middle Eastern production and everything is solved. But that's not really what's happening here. And under that kind of regime, am I still like connected?
Yeah, no, everyone can hear you. Bro.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, well, okay. Under that kind of regime, the tax incidence falls completely on the the tax incidence is completely on the consumer, and like the government is not taking away gasoline when it applies a fuel tax. So in this situation, like we have to price gas high enough to destroy enough demand for people to use less gasoline. Like that's why the prices are so high. And if the government is not siphoning away gasoline, because obviously it isn't, like it's a sales tax, then like we still need to destroy the same amount of demand. And so the price will still need to be the same. And so the only thing that you're doing when you cut gas taxes is you're transferring money from the government to the gas stations. And in theory, like the money gets transferred upwards. So like the gas stations are paying more for the oil from the oil suppliers, and you can trace it back that way. But the point is that the consumers are going to pay the same price because the demand still has to get destroyed. And so
that was the
there's
point
not
I was
really
going to
like
make, by the way.
More or less government. Yeah, but there's just no like this cannot benefit anyone because the whole thing is that people have to be harmed for the price mechanism to like play out as it's intended to.
Right. So, and that was the point I was going to make is so fuel prices have come down. So obviously the tax got cut by I think 32 cents all up because they added an additional 6 cents on top of it for whatever reason. So prices have come down. So they've gone from $2.60 to about $2.20 to $2.25. So pretty much exactly in line with the excise. But my point was to people like that's just going to climb up again because all that's going to happen is you're going to induce demand and the price is going to go back to where it was in a short period of time. So, like, it's not really going to solve the issue, so to speak. Adrian, did you want to jump in at all?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's very funny because okay, so I am a native of Illinois. I don't know if other states did this, but during like the inflation, bro, yeah. Terrible state.
So.
Terrible state. One of the worst states.
I'm in love with the place. What do you mean?
I have cultural affection for Chicago. I grew up there. I think it's very.
I believe it's pronounced Illinois.
Probably the worst run state in the country.
I think there's pretty stiff competition for that title.
Listen,
I wouldn't go for that quite.
Anyway, speaking of that poor governance, during the inflation crisis, I mean, I think I moved like right. Either I was like in the process of moving or I had already moved. Pritzker was, he's inflation relief. Like it's one of the inflation relief things. I don't know how many states did this overall, but Pritzker was the most like visual, like on the national stage, being like, yeah, we're gonna cut the gas sales tax in Illinois. Give the Illinois taxpayers a break, and then but he would get in like he was like threatening gas stations, like if you don't chains, if you don't lower exactly by the amount I've lowered, there will be like legal consequences. Or he was like literally. I mean, it's like Huey Long, like the worst. Like, and that I think might happen in Australia because like this isn't actually how like economics works. You don't just like take the top off and it's a very complicated thing that's going on. It's not just like you like it's like an Excel sheet. You just delete the tax thing, right? It's like supply and demand is dynamic. and it doesn't just rely on like very but we had to apply that like discrete things. Like that's not actually how prices work. And then governments get frustrated when they can't just will a thing to happen by fiat. And then Trump does this, Pritzker does this, a lot of populist politicians do this.
100%. Zulu, I'm just gonna say check DM real quick. It's a private thing, but check DM. So I want to go to Harrow again. We haven't heard from him in a while. So please jump in, man.
Hey, so I had a question regarding how you define objectivism as the philosophy of the primacy of existence. And as a caveat, you include basically that it's adherence to the primacy of existence across all the branches of philosophy. I wanted to know why you chose that as the differential instead of something focusing on, well, it's the namesake, the relationship between consciousness and existence, objectivity, like focusing and isolating. If you were to say, for example, the philosophy, I don't have a proper formulation, I'm still working on that, that in some way focuses on the relationship. Because you have that in the perceptual form, right? You have the relationship between existence and consciousness, and that's how we have percepts. And then that carries over into conceptual form, right? So it seems like that, to me, I wonder why you don't emphasize that, because it seems more fundamental than focusing on the primacy of
That's a good
existence.
question.
Sorry, what was the
Zulu,
question? I was too busy dealing with the DM.
Oh yeah, no worries. So how much of the preliminary exposition were you able to hear?
None at all. Please repeat your question.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So my question to you was why you define objectivism as the philosophy of the primacy of existence. Now I understand that you include in parentheses basically that it's adherence to the primacy of existence across all the branches of philosophy. I wanted to know why you emphasize that instead of, for example, objectivity, the namesake, be basically the relationship between consciousness and existence, which we see when going over how objectivism treats the perceptual realm, how it's a relationship between existence and consciousness, and same with the conceptual realm. It's you don't have intrinsicism and you don't have subjectivism where it's consciousness alone or existence alone, but it still focuses on that relationship. I wanted to know why you choose to define and have the differential of your definition of objectivism focus on the primacy of existence instead of that relationship.
So, to be clear, I define it as it's the application of the primacy of existence to every issue in philosophy. So that is itself what objectivity means, in my view. Objectivity is applying the primacy of existence. It means that your consciousness can't just create existence. You have to look out. That is the looking out, right? Existence has primacy over consciousness. There's not just existence or just consciousness. That's the materialist versus the idealist error. Primacy of existence, that implies in itself that you're doing this looking out at every stage. So objectivity, I think, is a derivative concept from the primacy of existence itself. So if we want to cut down to the root, that's why that's why I emphasize the primacy of existence, because that is the root issue at play here.
Okay, so you say it's the philosophy of the application of the primacy of existence. I ask because I haven't previously seen the application word thrown in when you have presented the definition in the past.
Well, so I don't include it in the definition itself, because I think the philosophy of the primacy of existence, I think that includes within itself that, okay, well, it's a philosophy of the primacy of existence. So what does that mean? that means you're applying the primacy of existence to every philosophical issue, or else it wouldn't be the philosophy of the primacy of existence, right?
Okay, that makes sense. So it's just treated as redundancy, but implied.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was my my last question. I have to get out for the night. It's late here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
For sure. Look, I mean, we've covered off pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Obviously, did you have anything you wanted to, add to or contribute? I'm happy to go for a bit longer if there's something else people want to chat about or whatnot. But otherwise, we can close things off for the day.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty happy with where we're at, and it's also getting very late for me, so I think we should probably wrap it up here.
Sue's just put her hand up, so we're going to keep you up a little bit longer, Zulu. Sue, go ahead.
I just have a question. So, I think the problem when we define objectivism as the application of the primacy of existence, without clarifying what that application is, then you have people like adopting, and specifically from you seeing that and like coming, it's like, well, I'm a Christian objectivist, and I don't think that goes against objectivism. And it's like, when you're like, obviously you cannot be an objectivist if you're a Christian, right? They're like, oh wow, like you must be a closed objectivist. But there has to be a differential of objectivism compared to other people who have the existence axiom and those who claim they're applying it, versus objectivists that have the existence axiom and who are, objectively applying it, right? So the definition has to have that differential.
Well, so that is just whether you're actually doing the application of the primacy of existence to that issue, which I don't think the Christians are. It's very clearly God thought this all up, right? That's, you got to have that.
Okay, but it's like what that specifically is would have to be in the definition, right? So it's like, what prevents from a Christian being like, oh, I'm an objectivist because I think the application of primacy of existence is Christianity, and therefore I'm actually an objectivist, which is like literally heard it from two different people.
Well, because they're not actually
like,
applying the primacy of existence, like clearly.
I mean, for it to be a definition, wouldn't that differentiator have to be there? Like, isn't that how we define things in terms of like philosophical systems?
Well, no, because
like that specific
the
differentiator has to be there.
differentiator is the primacy of existence, whether you're applying the primacy of existence. Now, I could say, I'm applying the primacy of existence, and I'm going to be a Platonist where everything comes from the form of the good, but clearly I'm not actually applying the primacy of existence there. Like, I can claim plenty of things, but that doesn't actually matter for what I'm saying.
I mean, I just think there will be different categorizations within philosophy for people who thinks they're being a Christian or a moral relativist or a Platonist who claim they're applying, like, what's the word? Primacy of existence.
Well, yeah, the differentiation is the primacy of existence, whether they actually are applying the primacy of existence. Like, even if we take the closed objectivist definition, and I say, well, Ayn Rand's belief is everything that David Hume says, and you come to me and say, well, no, her belief wasn't that. It's like, but how can you know that that wasn't her belief? I am applying Ayn Rand's beliefs, and it's everything that David Hume says. It's like, well, clearly this person is just a sophist. Like, I don't have to listen to this person any further, because they actually aren't engaged in the definition at hand.
Okay, fair enough.
Nice. Well, I'm glad we could get some objectivism into this as well, in the mix of everything else we've been talking about. Do want to flag at some point, I want to do a debate with either maybe Eduardo or Radcap or someone about the necessity of the state. But that's a conversation for another time. With that said, I think it's a good note on which to wrap things up. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. I'm seeing a individual in the. If you scroll down, there's a little Zulu sun guy, and he's got an interesting name. So people should check that guy out. But with
I'm mutuals with him, man. I love him.
But with that said, Zulu, did you want to read out some super chats before we, so we can do them on stream before we wrap things up?
Yes. So we got Errol David 95 for $5 US. Thank you very much. Did Hayek and Adolf also breathe oxygen by any chance? So presumably referring to Phil Magnus allegedly trying to connect Hoppe and Adolf Hitler. And then we got the Lazy Faye for another $5. Thank you very much. Bad state-related decisions. I indentured myself to the state for 6 years. Okay, thank you very much. And then another from the Lazy Faye for $5 US. The real strategy is for the Libertarian Vanguard to pool our resources and build a city at the bottom of the ocean. I'm not sure bottom of the ocean is the best bet, but certainly if something like that happens, then I'll go there. And then we've got a big multi-part one from Danny Cat for a total of $20 Australian. Thank you very much. That's a lot of money, that man. Who's saying, I think you're totally wrong about Block. He didn't even try to make a libertarian defense of the IDF. It's just an unhinged rant in the Wall Street Journal about how Israel is entitled to do whatever it takes to uproot this evil residing next to it. War is the number one libertarian issue and should disqualify someone from being active in the libertarian movement. Also said that the death penalty for refusing COVID vaccines is NAP compatible. I forgot to say being in favor of total war at the start of that third super chat. So, should disqualify someone. Presumably the second one. I don't know. I don't know what you're referring to there. Sorry. Yeah. What do you make of that, Monhop?
To be totally honest, I've been distracted by the DM stuff that we've been dealing with, so I haven't been paying too much attention. I'm just gonna be totally honest, which is probably not a good thing to admit as the host. But sorry, what was the which? I'm looking at your thing now. Which super chat is it? Oh, there's like 7 or something.
It's like a 4-parter. So like the thrust of it is that Walter Block wasn't even trying to make a libertarian defense of the IDF. He's just saying that, well, Israel's entitled to do whatever it takes to uproot this evil residing next to it. That's the character of what he's seeing as Walter Block's defense.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think Block went slightly, pretty off the rails with his assertions about what Israel is entitled to do. So it's definitely the case that, it's the link to the non-aggression principle was a tenuous one, but like I do at the very least think that he's like, what he's talking about is, the people in the Hamas and various other organizations within Gaza and Palestine are presenting an active threat to the people of Israel. And so, and as a result of that, the Israeli people are entitled to, again, I'm just making Block's argument here. The Israeli people are entitled to defend themselves. And if there's civilian casualties that result from the fact that Hamas wants to hide behind, small children or whatever, then the responsibility for that falls upon Hamas rather than Israel. That's basically Block's argument. Now, I think it's built on a faulty premise, namely the property rights question. And I definitely think that there's a pretty strong case to be made that Israel is not following the principle of gentleness with respect to how it carries out its military strikes. There's definitely been civilian casualties that were totally unnecessary. And furthermore, any of the stuff that's gone on with them destroying aid that's been sent to the Palestinian people, like that stuff's totally unacceptable. I've, certainly heard reports, and there's been other stuff about them, doing some pretty horrible things with regard to torture and rape and whatnot. And all that stuff is totally in violation of that principle. So I don't think Block really gets anywhere near close to establishing what he's trying to establish. But I do think that like nestled within it, this is what I'll say in defensive block. Nestled within it is this like kind of case that you can make where it's like the principle of gentleness holds that you need to do whatever you can to minimize civilian or innocent casualties, but it's not the case that you can always totally rule them out. And if you are following that principle, then the onus for that civilian death would fall upon the aggressor in that scenario. But again, I don't think Israel comes anywhere close to meeting that burden that they would have to meet. So that's kind of my take on it. But to answer the question, like, I can see how you could like squint and make that argument that Block's trying to make. I just don't think he really successfully makes it. So, and besides, I'm just not really willing to, I don't know, get into, people's internal state of mind as to why they're deciding to, make the arguments they're going to make. So that's kind of my perspective on it. I don't know if you wanted to come back on that, Zulu, at all. Or...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's been a while since there was the whole drama. I haven't read Block's work on Israel or anything, mainly because I don't actually care. And someone was getting at me today about the fact that I don't care about it. I mean, like, it really just is not. Like, nothing in the world can compel me to care about like the 2 millennia old blood feud between people in the Middle East, on the other side of the fucking planet from me. Like, literally, what do you guys want me to do about that? Like, I mean, even somebody was like, the other day, somebody was getting at me for like not making videos going after like it was either like Praxben or Tax Brass or someone like that. And it's like, well, I actually don't owe you my commentary on your pet issue. It's like, okay, if you're concerned about that, go ahead, make a video about that, make some post about that. Go ahead, but I'm not obliged to make some comment on literally every single problem that you have. My time is scarce. Guess what? Like, I face opportunity costs just like everybody else. I can't make a video on literally every single topic. Right? I simply cannot do that. It already takes me a long enough time to make videos on the topics I do care about. And I wish I could make more videos, right? But it's really not an issue that I care about. The issue of war. Like, there's already 1 trillion people who are doing podcasts and everything on foreign policy, and that's all they talk about. They're just the foreign policy guy. Like, I don't care about the issue enough to become an expert enough to say anything interesting on that. I can focus on other areas. And even people have criticized me for focusing on too many areas. So it seems like basically no matter what I do, I'm going to get criticism. And like, I don't care about it. Fundamentally. Right? I'm going to talk about the things that I care about. And that's just it. You're just going to have to live with that. If you want me to talk about something, bring a question about it, or suggest it, but I don't actually owe you the work that would be put in to making like a properly thought out position on that. I don't owe you that. If you want my comment on it, feel free to ask me about it, and I can give you whatever I have on it, given my current level of knowledge. But I don't owe you like a full 3-hour video essay on the Israel-Palestine situation or any other situation. I don't owe anybody that.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I would say on that as well, like, if you don't care about an issue, then the quality of the work that you're going to do on it is not going to be very good by comparison to the issues that you do care about. And, obviously, we weighted in pretty heavily on criticism of other libertarian or other people within the liberty movement, like Dave Smith and that. Again, part of that was, again, a personal, decision. right? Like that was an issue that motivated Zulu and I for personal reasons and also for reasons that we were concerned about the state of the liberty movement. And so we decided to, and more so Zulu than I, like I don't want to throw my lot in. Obviously, Zulu spent a lot more time making content on that issue than I did. But the point being that, like, yeah, sometimes you're just animated by an issue, okay, and you're going to talk about it. That doesn't mean that, you know, you're therefore obligated to spend an equal amount of time and energy and emotion caring about every issue that other people might care about. As you said, the topic of foreign policy and specifically Israel and Palestine is so oversaturated at this point that like it would just be drowned out by everything else that other people are talking about. Let's be totally honest. As you said, there's far more people that have been studying this stuff for years and years and years and years and years that are weighing in on this stuff. Like I don't see why it's a necessity that Zulu weigh in. The one argument that I have seen that I completely disagree with, by the way, was this whole notion of, well, because like the United States and you know the UK and even Australia are like, you know, supporting Israel, primarily the United States, obviously, that therefore, you know, we're obligated to talk about it because, you know, we're supporting Israel and what it's doing. So I don't know how that is remotely a libertarian proposition. The idea
Mm.
that the tax money that is being stolen from United States citizens being sent to Israel implicates an American citizen in any way, shape, or form purely because they're a taxpayer, like they're being stolen from, is absolutely ridiculous. I don't accept that notion whatsoever. The people that should be held responsible for what Israel is doing are the people that are calling the shots, and to a lesser extent, the people who, you know, the average citizen that's supporting them. You know, just because if my tax dollars happen to go to some particular cause, doesn't implicate me one iota with respect to that issue. So let's just make that clear as well.
Yeah, it's like how you're saying there's people who like study this thing for years and years and like they're weighing in on this. Like I mean, a good example of this is when I made the video on AI art. Like this was a brand new topic where I was confident I could have like the definitive statement on it. And as it turns out I did. Like nobody's been able to answer any of my critiques there. And with the Dave Smith thing, I was able to have the definitive statement on that because I had actually gone through and done the research on these topics. Like, I still believe, even up to this day, that I know the most about AI art of anybody in the world. I still think that is the case. It was definitely the case when I released the video. So there might be new developments that I'm not quite aware of. Like, yeah, that's what I'm going for. I'm going for, like, the new ground here. I'm not going for these saturated markets. I'm not interested in going for these saturated markets because, you know, I'm trying to build a brand here. I'm trying to make a profitable, you know, career here. Like, I think it's just so much more efficient for me to go for that new ground. Because then I can actually, like, say something very interesting and very important on these topics. You know, my analysis of Pluribus, which I've got in my mind currently, and it'll become a video at some point. I think I've got a completely unique take on Pluribus that nobody's seen before. And I think it's a very good take. And, you know, that's why I'm going for Pluribus next. Like, I want to be breaking new ground on these things. I don't want to just be treading the same old tired lines that everybody's already done already. You know, like, wow, guess what? You know, war is bad. Whoa, fucking breaking news, war is bad. Who could have ever fucking seen that one coming? Like, yeah, I don't think war is a good thing. I think there shouldn't be wars. Like, that's about the extent of what I can say to you. Do you want me to say that? I'll say it a million times. If I had infinite time in the universe, then I can give you infinity war is bads. But I just don't care. Because I have to care about only the things that animate me, that make me passionate. And it might not be the same things you're passionate about. It might not be the things that are even the most bad. Like, sure, it's probably way worse that there's like, you know, if a genocide happens, that's probably way worse than Dave Smith saying something that I disagree with. That's probably way worse. That doesn't mean that I'm equally enthused about talking about it or equally as knowledgeable, right? These are two separate things here. There's a division of labor for a reason, and I'm just embracing that. I'm embracing that and saying, I don't give a shit about foreign policy. I don't give a shit about that. There's a million other people on planet Earth who already give a shit about that. I just don't care enough to catch up in terms of the research.
No, that's a good note to end on, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. Did you have something else, Zulu? I just seen you come off mic briefly, but
yeah, I do just have one more super chat, but it's not necessarily relevant to the space. Is Eli YJ4PT for $2 Thank you very much. Saying to watch The Good Place, and I've seen that suggested before, so maybe that'll be my next thing to watch. I believe it's that show where they go to heaven or whatever.
hell yeah. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in for another episode of The Remnant. We will be back, all going well, 2 weeks hence, as per usual. Yeah, hopefully next time I won't accidentally nuke the space by going onto my ult, but no promises. But I'll see you all next time.
All right. Yeah.